The world I once lived in is gone. A giant black hole appeared in the vast sky, and from within the shapes of countless enormous monsters emerged. They were bizarre creatures with a ferocious will ready to destroy any enemy in their path. Humanity was forced to fight these monsters for its very survival, and I was no exception. My entire life was spent living by the sword. Back then, the young man looked down from above without a trace of fear. His eyes even held a certain coldness and arrogance. Day in and day out, he fought like a monster, knowing nothing but his sword and the heat of battle. Month after month, the young man never stopped. A full year passed, and from beginning to end, his eyes never lost that arrogant glint. In the end, everything was destroyed, and just like that, 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. With a single sword, he could slice through any monster that appeared before him. He no longer knew the meaning of fear. But when he faced an opponent towering countless leagues above him, whose immense power could seemingly overwhelm everything, he felt a sense of helplessness. He stared down coldly and said with arrogance, "Give up. Your world is gone." Facing this sight, the blonde-haired young man remained unafraid because he knew exactly who was responsible for everything. The giant monster spoke again. "Such a waste of your talent. Become my sword." But hearing those words, he just gritted his teeth and answered angrily, "Absurd." He gripped his sword tightly and charged forward, his face filled with determination. The two of them faced off, ready to attack at any moment. But the massive man showed no fear. He quickly gripped his own weapon, ready to counter. The battlefield seemed entirely one-sided. The massive figure held a clear advantage in this fight. His eyes even held an indescribable look of mockery. Faced with this, the young man remained unfazed. His face was a mask of cold, unyielding determination. Their swords clashed once more. The wind howled incessantly in their ears. The giant boomed once again. "No matter how much you struggle in my eyes, you're nothing but a pathetic insect." The young man's body was completely battered, and the armor he wore was shattered to pieces. Then he was sent flying by the monster's blow. He regained his courage and charged forward again at full speed. He held his great sword in hand, ready to strike at any moment. But the killing intent radiating from the man was terrifying. His eyes looked as if they could swallow his opponent whole at any moment. With just a single hand, he was able to send the boy's small frame flying. And yet the young man stood up once more. He faced the colossal figure completely without fear. He even noticed the sparkling crystal worn on the giant's chest. The sight of it piqued the young man's interest. Before the giant's massive axe could fall, he quickly dodged aside, evading the blow. With resolute eyes, he gripped his sword and struck. His sword seemed immensely powerful, ready to obliterate anything in its path. It now carried the ambition to cut down the giant monster before him. He couldn't help but pant for breath, because at that moment, he saw that the pendant had been completely shattered by his sword. That act sent the monster into an indescribable rage. Its voice distorted as it roared, "You bastard!" The blonde-haired young man simply stood there in silence. He watched as the crystal on the necklace shattered into pieces. The monster screamed in fury. After that, it seemed he was destroyed, his entire body slowly fading into nothingness. The young man, looking exhausted, lay flat on the ground. He lay in a large pool of his own blood, gasping in pain. His dazed eyes quickly closed. The last thing he saw was the sparkling, star-filled night sky and the hot glow of the flames all around, a beautiful sight. It seemed that figure had completely vanished into thin air. At that moment, a young man was walking down a long road, looking utterly exhausted. He walked like an ordinary person taking a stroll in the city. And just then, a red warning light began to flash. "This is the C-Rank Namsan Gate recommended for C-Rank teams, and above, a minimum of 3 people are required for entry. Please scan your registration code and personal identification code." The system's voice echoed continuously in his ear. "Non-heroes, please stay away from this area. This is Dongseonggu, a special city in Seoul." The young man, with a carefree look, kicked the door and stepped inside. Thick dust filled the entire space. The warning light above flashed again continuously. "Danger, an unregistered hero has entered the gate illegally." But seeing those crazy notifications, his face remained incredibly calm. He slowly stepped into the dark place, but the scenery here was actually very peaceful and fresh. He walked straight ahead. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the side. "Hey, young man." A group of people walked towards him, asking with a concerned look, "Are you lost?" Their leader glanced at him seriously. "I don't know how you got in here, but we're preparing to retreat. You can come with us." He heard these words but remained silent. The space slowly fell into a strange silence, and the girl beside them quickly whispered, "Bro, look at how he's dressed. He doesn't look like a hero at all, does he?" They started running their mouths again. Porters these days have a really free sense of style, but dressing like that is just... "And what the heck is with that bag?" They couldn't help but sigh. Then they continued to judge him. He's probably one of those useless porters brought in by some heroes and then abandoned, right? It probably isn't that bad. The young man sighed tiredly. "I know what you're thinking, but I just got here." The guy nearby heard this and replied, "See, I told you he was abandoned." The leader of the group was a bit displeased to hear this. "I've met many people like you. No matter why you came here, you should speak with some manners, talking so bluntly like that. You think you can hunt monsters just by watching TV? You're asking for a death wish. First, you need a hero certificate past the training and the test. Then you can dream. Besides this, Namsan Gate is a C-rank gate. If you're a newbie, go back to an F-rank gate to practice." But when the young man heard this, he didn't react at all. He even replied very seriously, "I understand you're looking out for me, but I don't need it." This answer immediately stunned the entire group. They couldn't comprehend the young man's way of thinking at all. "What kind of crazy idiot is this? Bro, don't stop me this time." The group watched the young man's retreating back and discussed carefully among themselves. Enough if he won't listen to advice. The only way is to let him experience it for himself. Then, he'll know a gate is nothing like what you see on TV or social media. It's a real hell. Just then, behind him, the figure of a terrifyingly huge monster appeared. Its eyes looked down, seemingly with a mix of contempt and hunger. A piercing scream came from its mouth, but the boy didn't respond. He just calmly closed his eyes. Finally, when faced with the attack launched by the monster, he dodged it with incredible ease and composure. His eyes, looking straight ahead, seemed to carry a certain coldness 10 years. The attack from the massive creature's hand was quickly launched. Suddenly it sensed something was wrong, because the young man's figure had already appeared in the distance at an incredible speed, his fist clenched and ready. He headed straight for the monster over there, throwing a powerful and completely unrelenting punch. And when faced with this attack, it was completely blown away, unable to defend itself. And that massive body slowly fell, blood pooling and spreading everywhere. The teenager stood there with his hands covered in blood, his expression completely unchanged. It really made no difference at all. The monster was defeated very quickly. Dujun stared straight ahead, his hands also facing outward. He held the sharp sword, seemingly lost in thought for a moment. His eyes held a calculating look with a glint of cunning. He quickly pointed the tip of the sword directly at the monster lying there. A powerful spray of blood erupted. He skillfully wielded his weapon easily, finding the precious item within the creature's body. From within, a sparkling crystal could be seen. This was called a low-grade mana stone, and it even emitted a gentle light. Previously, this stuff was considered trash that no one would even look at. But he had no other choice. He could only pull the small backpack from his shoulder and slowly stuff it inside. He fumbled about trying to gather all the treasures. Suddenly, the teenager heard a strange noise ringing in his ears. From behind, the footsteps of countless monsters were slowly approaching. They were in a bloodthirsty and terrifying state, raising their weapons high. But he easily ducked down, dodging all of them. He channeled his internal energy into the hand holding the mana stone. Then he took that very stone and threw it straight at the head of an unlucky one. The attack was so powerful that it completely blew the monster's head off. The remaining two saw their comrade defeated and gripped their weapons, tightly determined to get revenge. Yet from beginning to end, his expression never wavered. Meanwhile, the group of 4 from earlier was nearing the end of their hunt. The girl in the team couldn't help but remark, the guy from before was really unlucky. What if he actually died? As soon as she said that, another young man replied decisively, "What's this? Are you worried about him?" The team leader calmly continued, "If he really is an illegal intruder by now, the gate control center has probably already sent agents." Just as he said, a group of people in black suits was rushing over. They spoke seriously among themselves. "Southgate, this floor is C rank, so agents B rank or higher will be dispatched. As long as he's not crazy enough to charge at the monsters first, he won't die. So don't worry about it." The other person was delighted to hear this. "My brother says that rude stranger is probably shaking like a leaf right now, just waiting for agents to come save him." But in an unexpected turn of events, the one trembling wasn't him at all. Faced with such a formidable opponent, the huge monsters could only panic in fear. After that, they were completely wiped out by the teenager's fists. In the blink of an eye, Du-jun had sent them all flying. Now the figure of a large monster appeared from behind, seemingly wanting to try a sneak attack. The knife in his hand slashed down powerfully. Witnessing the fierce destructive power of that attack, the monster itself was struck with terror, unable to believe it. Before it could even recover, it sensed the teenager behind it making a move. In an instant, he stomped down hard on the opponent's head with his foot. It lost control and spat out a large mouthful of blood. After that, it was very quickly and completely defeated. The teenager picked up his weapon and slowly walked forward. His face was cold as he raised his sword high. 3 more mana stones. The sky was blue with pure white clouds, and the scenery here was truly vast and refreshing. He happily hugged his backpack, now full of mana stones, and left the area. As he walked, he grumbled to himself in boredom. Today's harvest is really disappointing. A total of 12 low-grade and 16 mid-grade stones. Just then, an agent sped past him from behind. He suddenly shouted, "This way!" Then he heard the sound of urgent footsteps rushing quickly toward him. Very quickly, the group of 4 appeared before him with extremely serious expressions. The leader looked forward and spoke. "We are from the Gate Control Center. Please present your hero registration card. If you are not a registered hero, please come with us to the center." Du-jun seemed a bit bewildered by those words. The Gate Control Center? However, the man in front of him was already out of patience, his expression turning terrifying. "Please cooperate and follow the instructions." Du-jun couldn't make any sense of the situation. What the hell is going on now? He shot a cold glare in their direction. With a prickly demeanor, he quickly turned to leave. This is such a pain. The men quickly lost their patience. The leader shouted in order, "Get the handcuffs." The agent beside him had no choice but to comply. "Sir, would you please cooperate with us? If you do not follow our instructions, we will be forced to use coercive measures." Then he roughly grabbed the boy's wrist. His eyes carried a warning as he spoke coldly. "Any injuries incurred due to resistance will be your sole responsibility. It's best you come with us to the control center to resolve this peacefully." But before he could even finish his sentence, the boy had easily twisted his arm back. This move made the other agent's eyes widen in shock. He certainly never expected to find himself in a situation like this. The boy's eyes were now filled with an indescribable coldness. "Stop bothering me and get lost." Seeing his defiant attitude, the other 2 men grit their teeth, looking none too pleased. The 2 weapons they held began to activate. Of course, Du-jun was very familiar with those items. A level 4 magic seal. That kind of thing only works on orcs and lower-class monsters. The young man violently twisted the agent's arm once more. Du-jun's voice was icy. "This is your final warning. If you don't want to get hurt any further, get out of here." The young man remained standing there in silence the entire time. When faced with the men's attacks, he easily blocked everything with just his hands. He effortlessly dodged to the side to avoid the blow. His hands even swung out ready to attack at any moment. His feet weren't idle either, as he swiftly landed a kick right into his opponent's back. In an instant, both of them were nearly taken down. The other man was even kicked so hard he was sent flying. The remaining agent watched this unfold, unable to believe his eyes. He couldn't help but grit his teeth, trying to come up with a viable plan for his next move. Du-jun showed no reaction, simply looking over at him calmly. In the end, the young man's figure had vanished. This sight threw the man into a state of extreme confusion. He disappeared, but in the next moment, he was struck squarely in the torso, completely unable to defend himself. He clutched his stomach and staggered back, coughing a few times. However, the boy had no intention of defeating him. His calm voice echoed in the space. Panicked, the man slowly raised his head and asked, "What?" Du-jun asked with a serious expression. "So registered heroes don't have this problem." The man could only answer awkwardly, "Yes, as long as they don't commit any specific illegal acts inside the gate, there's no reason for agents to be dispatched." Suddenly, he asked another question that made the man's face drain of all color. "What is a rift zone?" "It's a passage to another world where bizarre monsters appear all across the globe. The byproducts obtained from hunting monsters there are used as a new energy source. The government has completely sealed off these passages and trapped the monsters inside, creating what we call gates. Areas that have not yet become gates are called rift zones." Du-jun looked down at him with cold eyes. "It doesn't matter which gate it is. You people will show up, won't you?" His voice grew sterner and more menacing. "And then you'll start spouting nonsense about illegal entry and whatnot." The agent's face darkened, a hint of fear in his eyes. Yes, that's right. If someone who isn't a registered hero enters a gate, the system automatically alerts the control center, and any agents on standby nearby are immediately dispatched. He grew more animated as he spoke, raising his voice again. Rift zones aren't as easy to enter and exit as gates. Not even the Hero Association would let that slide. But the boy standing there remained completely unfazed. Is that so? And then what? Faced with this, the man was truly panicking inside. This guy is insane. Besides, I should have reported this to headquarters from the very beginning. But soon after, his entire face was completely under the boy's control. In a flash, the boy used one hand to flip him over his shoulder. Dujun couldn't help but sigh internally. What a bunch of losers. The guy behind him saw this and shouted in anger, "You bastard!" His eyes were then fixed on the silhouette of the young man striding away. "Next time, I will definitely kill you." The moment the crystal pendant shattered, a strange memory seemed to surface in his mind. A piercing scream echoed in his ears. No. A blond man was completely defeated amidst his own desperate screams. I felt like I was being pulled into something, and then I lost consciousness. Death. I thought that was death. That man seemed to have fallen into a boundless space, his beautiful eyes slowly opening to stare straight ahead. And yet he now existed in a state of suspension, floating in the sky. Facing him was Do-jun, who stood there dumbfounded, completely unable to understand what was happening. Someone. The young man before him spoke in a very soft voice, slowly introducing himself. "I am Seo Jo-jun, and I'm about to die. If you help me, I will disappear quietly." As he said this, his voice seemed to carry a hint of fear. But the man before him quickly replied with certainty, "I don't want to." Receiving such a blunt refusal truly left the young man at a loss. The blond man before him spoke again. "I have no lingering attachments to this life anymore. 10 years of fighting like a madman, only to be betrayed by my 9 comrades in the end. The country I lived for collapsed, and everyone I cared for is dead, from friends to family. No matter how decently you live, this is all life amounts to in the end. You will end up the same way." The moment he said this, Dujun's heart was thrown into extreme turmoil. He lowered his head and spoke softly once more. "I don't care what happens to my life, but I don't want Grandma and Yi-yun to live like that." The blond man floating there heard this and sighed wearily. "So what? Get to the point. What do you want?" The young man was immediately delighted to hear this. His hands gently touched his chest as he slowly began to speak. "What I want is..." Meanwhile, at the Gasan Digital Complex in Gumshan, Seoul, Special City. This place is called the Hero Complex because the number of transaction points from gates exceeds even that of Company X. Dujun, his body tattered and torn, walked along the long street. He soon stopped in front of a shop with a colorful sign. Inside, a tough-looking young man with tattoos was playing on his phone. As soon as he saw someone enter, he looked up and greeted them. "Welcome." Dujun stood there and said seriously, "I want to sell some magic stones." The other man heard this and replied cheerfully, "You've come to the right place. We buy magic stones at the highest prices, not just in Seoul, but in all of Korea." The young man quickly tossed countless stones onto the table. The guy was a bit shaken by the sight, cursing internally. "Damn it, at least wipe off the blood before you bring them here." He forced a smile and said, "You've brought quite a lot, please. Wait a moment while we sort them." "Would you like some coffee while you wait?" He sat calmly on the chair and answered indifferently, "Whatever." The man over there seemed to be very serious about his work. He then announced, "There are 12 low-grade magic stones, 16 mid-low grade, and 5 high mid-grade. You're aware that the transaction fee is 40% of the purchase price, right? If so, let's calculate it." He then announced cheerfully, "The total amount you will receive is 5.46. Before Dojun could even finish speaking, the man in front motioned for him to stop. Dojun leaned forward and asked loudly, "I'm the one out there hunting monsters, and you guys just sit here and take a 40% transaction fee." The man over there put on an arrogant air and slowly replied, "You really don't know. We usually take 45%, but since it's you, we gave you a discount. If you don't want to sell, you can take them back. But no matter where you go, you won't find anyone who'll buy them for a higher price." Dejun didn't haggle, he just gathered them all up to take home. But before he could leave, the guy in front of him blocked his way. The man's eyes turned menacing, and his voice became sly as he slowly spoke. "Sir, you still have to pay the sorting fee, don't you? The coffee wasn't free either. The sorting fee is 300 gol, and we'll just take a small 10 gol for the coffee. The fee for cleaning the blood off our expensive cloth will be another 35 gul, so the total is 350 gul. Dujun just sighed calmly and replied with disgust, I don't have any money. If you want to take it, go ahead and try. The man's face twisted into a fearsome expression as if he was very familiar with this kind of situation. You will pay, because we've got a few C-rank heroes backing us up, you bastard. Just then, a group of tall, burly men slowly emerged from the back, looking ready for a fight at any moment. The one in the middle, with an arrogant look on his face, slowly asked, What is it? What's going on now? Another bastard causing trouble. Dujun stared forward with a cold gaze, completely unfazed. And the tall man over there seemed to be looking this way with an arrogant air. Seeing the scene in front of him, the man was struck with fear, because they quickly saw that the group of huge men had been completely sent flying. Dujun had easily defeated them all with one hand. The C-rank heroes were quickly sent flying. He walked straight forward, completely calm. He faced the owner over there and said seriously, the commission is 1%. From now on, let's have a good working relationship. A gentle smile played on his lips, but you could still see an extreme coldness in his eyes. The deal was quickly made. Dujun turned to leave with a cheerful expression. Well then, I'll drop by again sometime. After that, he brought a large stack of money home and threw it on the table. His little sister and his elderly grandmother were completely astonished by the sight. Seeing the huge pile of cash on the table, she seemed a bit bewildered. Dujun, where did you get all this money? He sat there and replied with a pleasant smile. It's not what you think. I lent a friend some money to start a business, and it finally paid off. The grandmother sitting opposite him didn't seem to believe his strange story. You have a friend like that. Dujun gave a slight smile and continued, You know him, the friend I used to play with as a kid back in our hometown. Hearing that she seemed to have mixed feelings. Of course I know him. His little sister sitting there was now overjoyed. Brother, does this mean we're going to be rich now? Dujun gently stroked the little girl's head. From that moment on, the little girl ran happily around the house shouting, We're rich, we're rich! Her face lit up with excitement as she ran and jumped all over the place. The young man's mind drifted back to everything he had been through, to his grandmother and his sister, Ye Hong. Please let them live in a home that's safer than any other place. And then he disappeared before I could even answer. Dujun now stared at his own reflection in the mirror with cold eyes. When I woke up, I had become Seo Dojun. The safest house in Korea right now cost 110 billion won. I'm not obligated to keep a one-sided promise like that, but still. Once I regain my strength, money won't be an issue at all. He looked down at his own hands, his resolve wavering slightly. The rifts, the monster gates, everything here is weaker than the world I watched fall. To me, a sword god, this place is just child's play. I haven't even recovered 1/10 of my former strength yet. Just then, a loud bang came from the door. Seo Dojun, you in there? Dojun smiled and stood up. I'll go check on that, you two, just stay here. The front door was quickly opened. Standing there were two men with brightly colored hair who had clearly been waiting. The red-haired man smirked. Seo Dojun, it's about time you paid your debt, isn't it? Do you have any idea how much you owe? It's a whopping 48 million. Dojun looked tired of this scene. These must be the loan sharks the real Seo Dojun borrowed from. The 5 million won he borrowed had ballooned to 10 times that amount in a short time. The men leaned in and continued cheerfully. Any money you make from the gates you hand it over. It's all in the contract, you know. So don't act like this is unfair. Before he could even finish his sentence, Dojun had already thrown a punch. His next blow was aimed straight at the red-haired man behind him. The other man watched completely stunned. They absolutely couldn't believe what they were seeing. What just happened? Dojun stared straight ahead with cold eyes. I've already paid back over 9 million won, so shouldn't I be the one receiving money? The blonde-haired man was terrified, completely in disbelief. Are you really Seo Dojun? He clenched his fists, ready to strike. Tell your boss that I'll be paying him a visit soon. After that, a piercing scream of pain echoed out. That day, he led his little sister into a bustling shopping center. The beautiful stuffed animals on the sparkling shelf looked incredibly cheerful. The little girl stood there, looking up, her eyes shining with an unconcealable love for them. Can I really buy one? Can I get a new doll? Dojun smiled happily and replied, Of course we've already bought clothes now. You can pick whatever you want. Dojun couldn't help but let out a faint smile. As I shared Seo Dojun's memories, my previously numb emotions began to change. Looking at the happy and excited little girl over there right now, it's just empathy. But Seo Dojun was truly very good to his little sister, Yu Yong. At the very least, I have to protect that love. The little girl picked up a small rabbit and asked softly, "Brother, can I get this one?" Seeing the tiny rabbit in the little girl's hands felt a bit heartbreaking. Just then, Dojun pulled a large bear from somewhere and presented it to the child. Then he smiled cheerfully and said, "I told you that you could pick whatever you want." Hearing this, Yu Yong broke into a huge excited smile. Next, they once again had a delicious meal, a rare treat in their lives. The two of them sat at the table, eating with great enjoyment. Suddenly, a voice came from behind them. "Wait a minute, Seo Dojun. It really is Seo Dojun." A blonde-haired woman suddenly appeared with two bodyguards, seeming to be an old acquaintance of the young man. She spoke with an arrogant smile. "What happened to you? How did you end up looking like this? You look like a mess dressed like that. And who is this kid next to you?" Dojun's expression changed instantly when he heard her next words. "Did you do something nasty and get someone pregnant just like your mother?" The atmosphere between them grew tense and incredibly cold. The little girl, full of questions, couldn't help but wonder, who is this lady? But Dojun remained completely silent from beginning to end. The woman's face showed a mocking expression filled with contempt. Her gaze shifted to the small girl sitting beside him, eating a cake, completely oblivious to what was happening. She slowly approached the little girl, asking in a haughty tone, "What's your name, Yu Yong?" She taunted again, "Yu Yong. Are you from the Yu family? Just look at how you're dressed. You're a mess, just like your mother." Then she glanced at the young man beside her and added, "Isn't that right?" Seeing that she received no reply, she began to speak in a low voice. "What are you mute now? You're not going to answer." No matter what she said, she didn't get the response she wanted, and her expression twisted with anger. Then she quickly changed her target, looking at the little girl next to him. "Hey kid, do you know what the word gigolo means?" As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding air became colder than ever. He sat there, his eyes fixed coldly on the woman who was rambling on. His voice was indifferent and deep. "You really are an ugly woman, just like an orc." The moment he said this, she was so stunned that she whipped her head around to look at him. Her face had already changed color, and she could no longer maintain her arrogant demeanor. Seo Dojun was born out of wedlock and lived in poverty. At age 7, his mother passed away, and he struggled to get into his father's house. He lived for 10 years amidst discrimination and contempt. After his father's official wife gave birth to a son, he was completely abandoned. He was then kicked out and went to live with his half-sister from the same mother at his grandmother's house. Seo Dojun, a young man who always wore a smile but carried countless scars in his heart. Just what kind of mindset did he have to endure all of this? At that moment, he secretly made a decision. Everything is going to be different now. The young man looked at the woman standing beside him, his voice full of hatred. "We've lived together for 12 years, and I still find you disgusting. It's not just because of your rotten appearance and personality, but you're also stupid and incapable of learning anything. You just feel a heavy sense of inferiority towards any woman who dresses better or is kinder than you. You, someone who only cares about your little brother's money, are no better than this child. Not one bit better." These words quickly drew the attention of everyone nearby. The two of them stood facing each other, but their auras were completely different. The girl's expression twisted with resentment as she stared straight ahead. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind. A beautiful woman with distinctive blonde hair slowly looked their way and spoke, "Seo Jun, it's been a while." She was like a dog wagging its tail, running over and happily calling out Mom as the woman approached. Then tears started to well up in her eyes as she cried out in distress, "Mom, do you know what that devil just said to me? He said, I'm just..." Before she could finish, the woman quickly cut her off. "Stop. Stay right there." Her face quickly changed and her voice turned cold as she continued, "What kind of uncivilized behavior is this?" The woman smiled cheerfully at him. "That's my Seo Jun. How have you been lately?" Then she added with a bright smile, "No matter how busy you are, I hope you'll come home sometimes." Seo Jun faced her, cursing internally. What a hypocrite. "You're the one who hurt me the most over the past 12 years. The woman's face still held a gentle smile. "Your father has been very worried about you." But he quickly cut through the act. "How disgusting! We're not just exchanging pleasantries here, are we?" With a cold expression, he slowly uttered his next words, his gaze intense and crazed scram. It was the first time the woman had endured such a humiliation, and she seemed unable to accept it. But there was nothing else she could do, so she had no choice but to turn and leave. Her hurried steps betrayed her inner turmoil. Is this really the Seo Jun I know? The kid who would bow his head even after being slapped for losing a bet. The girl quickly chased after her, a sense of fear in her heart. Mom, let's go together, please. Seo Jun watched them leave, completely devoid of emotion. He quickly signaled to the little one behind him. Let's go. Yo, Yi Gong, yes sir. He stood there thinking to himself, the Seo Jun who said nothing and just endured it is gone. It would be better for your own safety if you realized that sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, the luxury car sped down the road at a dizzying pace. The girl from before shouted at her mother, Mom, why did you just leave? You should have dealt with that guy. That bastard, do you know what he said to me? But the woman beside her completely ignored her, angrily calling out, Manager. Her expression quickly turned terrifying. Why is Seo Jun still alive? The bald manager in the front seat answered hesitantly. According to the report, Kang Qian-woo said he left Seo Jun at the gate. The girl in the back screamed in anger, Why? Why is that guy who was supposed to die still alive? The manager stuttered, I'm sorry, I'll look into it right away. Hearing this, the girl's voice trembled. He was supposed to die. Mom, what do you mean? The woman remained silent, not answering. But the girl next to her kept screaming questions. What are you talking about, Mom? What the hell are you doing? She yelled furiously. Are you trying to kill Seo Jun? The woman beside her asked coldly, Don't tell me you still like that Seo Jun. The girl seemed flustered by the question, then stammered, That's not it. The car continued to speed down the road. If grandfather or dad finds out about this, then... But before she could finish, her mother clamped a hand over her mouth. Then, in a chilling voice, she said, This is something you and I have to handle ourselves. Mind your own business. It was probably the first time the girl had ever seen her mother look so crazed, and her whole body began to tremble. The woman seethed with rage internally. How dare you speak to me like that? You filthy bastard! I will get rid of you no matter what! 10 years ago, when the cracks first appeared, monsters emerged from them and killed people. The world was thrown into extreme chaos. However, that chaos was immediately quelled by the appearance of heroes. Along with mana stones extracted from monsters, a car sped down the road. Seo Jun sat in the car, gazing at the passing scenery. With mana stones replacing traditional energy sources, nations focused all their energy on blocking the cracks with gates. Now, all industrial structures revolve around gates and heroes. And now that car finally slowed to a stop. If you want to make money, you need to become a hero. Seo Jun soon arrived at a small house. This is it. The young man's footsteps moved steadily forward. Facing this rundown place, he couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Inside, a man was slowly exhaling plumes of white smoke. The men inside were the debt collectors from before, and the one in the middle was their boss. Who the hell are you, you bastard? Then he angrily stubbed out his cigarette. You beat up my men, and you still have the nerve to show your face here. Du Jun, sitting calmly across from him, replied, No matter how you look at it, I'm the one at a disadvantage here. Hearing this, the men on the other side asked seriously, A disadvantage? You're saying you're at a disadvantage. He replied again with certainty, I believe I need to be compensated for the mental, physical, and material damages I've suffered because of you all this time. The man in front of him seemed to realize something was wrong, and his eyes under the sunglasses seemed to flash with a strange light. His gentle personality has changed too, and considering he beat my employees to a pulp, it seems he must have awakened in a gate. The man rushed forward with a very ugly expression. Looks like you found something to be confident about, didn't you? Let me show you what happens to arrogant punks who get cocky just because they've awakened. He quickly slammed the table, signaling his henchmen. A group of burly men appeared from behind, surrounding him in an instant. The boss turned to leave, looking bored. Those bastards who get proud of their awakening are nothing but D-rank trash in the end. But I have plenty of men who can make a puny D-rank like you disappear without a sound. Faced with this scene, Do Jun simply sat there in silence from start to finish. Before the man could leave, he spoke coldly, stopping him. Sit down. His face held an indescribable coldness. I'm not finished talking yet. Hearing this, the man rushed forward in anger. What is it now? How dare a little brat like you talk to me like that? But the one thing he never expected was that the kid could so easily snatch the glasses right off his nose. In an instant, he threw a powerful punch straight at the man's face. The man was quickly defeated. You don't just run a private loan shark business, do you? As he spoke, he threw another punch at the men beside him. With cold eyes, he spoke again. I know you also forge identification cards. I need a hero card. Another fist landed. Facing the remaining men, he easily dodged all of them. He quickly delivered a powerful blow from below. In a flash, he had taken down all of the large men. Du-jun glanced around with a cold gaze. "I want you to make me a perfect one with no complications." "You have until tomorrow." Hearing this, the man was terrified. Meanwhile, the remaining henchmen could no longer keep their composure. Sweat beaded on their foreheads. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. What kind of power is that? Isn't he D rank or C rank? No, could he be B rank? At this thought, their faces paled once more. Du-jun asked coldly, "Aren't you going to answer me?" The man could only bow his head respectfully and reply, "I'll do it." He once again placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "Write one more thing." With a cold expression, he looked straight ahead. "Did Hong He-do order you to kill me?" The man recalled the girl's silhouette and couldn't help but start calculating in his mind. But before he could think, the young man in front of him pressed his hand firmly against his throat. "Well, answer me." A piercing scream rang out, a sound of extreme agony. The other men didn't dare to move. They could only stand by and watch their boss suffer. In the end, they had no choice but to reveal the truth. It was Hong He-do. "That woman said it would be great if we made you struggle with debt until you killed yourself. That's what she told me. Let me go. Please let me go." Du-jun's expression didn't change at the sight. He asked again, seriously, "Suicide? So is that why she trapped me in the gate?" The man, trembling, slowly answered, "Trapped you in a gate? I don't know anything about that. I swear, I really don't." He was in so much pain that he could only bow and beg. "I wouldn't get paid if you died in there, so there's no way I would send you to a gate. I swear it." Du-jun thought carefully once again. Then he slowly brought up the name Kang Tae-o. "That bastard is the one who took me to the gate. I want you to bring me information on that guy by tomorrow." The man sat there bowing his head in fear. "I understand." Afterwards, they saw him off as if he were a god bowing respectfully. Du-jun walked out of the house with a calm expression. He recalled the words of this body's previous owner. "Please let Grandma and Yong live in a house safer than anywhere else." He couldn't help but curse inwardly, "That bastard. Now I will start setting things right." The young man picked up his hero card, lost in deep thought. He then quickly placed it into the scanner over there. A system voice echoed in his ear. "Your hero registration card has been confirmed. Your rank is lower than recommended. It is very dangerous. Please proceed with caution." Du-jun took the small card in his hand, thinking to himself, "That damn director, he should have upgraded it by one more rank." He ignored the nonsensical announcements and walked straight inside. "Your rank is lower than recommended. Your rank is lower than recommended." The young man quickly entered the B-rank Night Island gate, which had a tunnel-like terrain with an entrance limited to only 2 people. Although it was a B-rank gate, its D-rank scale made soloing much more difficult. However, because of the tunnel format, it could only be challenged solo, making it a difficult gate to clear unless you were around A rank. And if luck wasn't on my side, a faint smile appeared on his lips. Then I'll have to face hundreds of monsters alone in a dark and cramped tunnel. But now a crazed smile spread across Du-jun's face. "I like it." Facing the giant serpent that was opening its massive mouth towards him, he easily sent it flying. In the blink of an eye, he took down the opponent and grabbed its magic stone. The monster was completely defenseless, its pained roars echoing in his ears. Du-jun stared forward with a cold gaze. Hack sat Hack, a type of snake whose venom causes paralysis with just a slight touch. With his extensive knowledge, he quickly put on a pair of gloves to completely protect himself. His feet moved lightly, spinning to dodge the opponent. He quickly unleashed sharp slashes, completely destroying the giant monster. Its body was torn to pieces. However, the glove was now stained with a bit of venom. The most unexpected thing was that the glove showed no change at all. For 301, these gloves aren't too bad. Suddenly, Du-jun glanced behind him with a cold look, because over there, countless giant serpents had appeared ready to attack at any moment. The young man's expression didn't change as he charged straight ahead. He quickly annihilated all of them. The desperate screams of the monsters echoed continuously inside the small tunnel. Their venom splattered everywhere. From beginning to end, Du-jun remained perfectly calm standing inside the small tunnel. But these monsters seemed a bit strange because they didn't have any magic stones at all. No matter how he searched, he couldn't find any. If it was like the previous world, the drop rate for a magic stone from a Hack-sat Hack should be about 3%. Well then, there was no other choice. He could only head straight forward, calculating to himself that he would have to hunt a few hundred of them. He soon arrived at an area filled with the corpses of previous heroes. Their bodies had rotted away, leaving only dry skeletons, and they gave off an incredibly foul stench. Dujun stared straight ahead with a cold gaze. "Are you the boss?" A giant serpent with sharp eyes quickly appeared before him, staring in his direction. He tossed his backpack aside and remarked slowly, "Well, I was lost anyway, so warming up like this is good. I should finish this quickly and go back." He clenched his fists and shot up into the air, ready to strike down at any moment. But the sight before him truly surprised him, because when his attack landed, its large head was only slightly affected, taking no damage at all. "My attack has no effect." Dujun looked that way with a cold gaze. In an instant, he was sent flying by the snake's giant tail. His whole body was slammed against the large wall, completely unable to avoid it. The monster opened its wide mouth, baring its incredibly terrifying sharp teeth. It was like a hunter eyeing its delicious prey before lunging forward for a fatal bite. But Dujun was already using his swift feet to try and escape. His gaze was sharp as he looked on. He attacked with his powerful hands. But the current situation left him a bit unsure of how to react, because the more I fought it, the stronger the monster became. Just as I'd predicted, it was on a different level than the snakes I had fought before. Its shell is too tough, my fists can't even get through it. What should I do? If only I could regain my strength, this thing would have been. Dujun suddenly remembered something. He saw a sword stuck in the ground right next to him. He seemed to size it up, then slowly closed his eyes and sighed. "It's this old and battered, but I guess I have no other choice." He quickly pulled it out, knowing that a sword's power, no matter how old, depends on the one holding it. He gripped the sharp sword and strode forward. "This sword, lend me your strength for a moment." He faced the giant serpent completely unafraid. In a flash, the young man's figure completely disappeared, because he was now hovering in mid-air, ready to attack at any moment. His eyes held an indescribable frenzy. "Consider it an honor that I'm ending you myself, you serpent." That old battered sword was now being used to its full potential. The serpent below seemed to sense the danger and let out a quick roar. His gaze remained cold and arrogant from beginning to end. In an instant, its entire body was sent flying, but it seemed the sword didn't remain intact either. Dujun sighed, feeling a bit helpless. He looked at his sword, which had broken into pieces, and muttered, "If I hadn't been able to beat it, this would have been a real disaster." Then he looked over at the serpent lying there. The blue venomous blood finally began to flow out. He then brutally pulled out the serpent's sharp fang. "It's a bit short for a greatsword, but if I sharpen it a little, it'll be useful. Anyway, I'm glad this is better than that thing from Nam-san." It was late at night when he walked out of the giant gate, alone, thinking about how much time he had to spend on a B-rank gate like this. He couldn't help but clench his fists, silently resolving that restoring his power was his top priority. Looking up at the sky, he seemed to see the figures of his companions from his past life, silently glad that his old comrades couldn't see him in his current state. The scene changes to a familiar exchange shop. A man was selling all the magic stones he had just acquired. The young man in front of him slowly spoke up. "It seems you've collected a number of high-quality magic stones. As usual, our commission is 40%. The man in front of him heard this and asked seriously, "Isn't that a bit too high? I'm a regular, can't you give me a little discount?" But the young man holding a stack of money calmly replied, "Come on, you know our commission is the lowest out there, right? The gate center alone charges a fixed 5% fee, and we don't even keep transaction records, so you don't have to pay taxes." Then he slowly pushed the stack of money forward. "If you think about it, this is a clean transaction with no hassle and a great price." The other man took the money, seeming somewhat satisfied. Then he looked at the person in front of him again and said seriously, "But what happened to your face?" The young man who had been beaten up earlier still hadn't fully recovered. The other person shrugged calmly and replied, "Don't even talk about it. Some psycho showed up out of nowhere, took down all our guards, and then did this to me." Hearing that, the man shrugged and replied calmly, "You got too cocky just because of a C-rank guard. I've told you before, ranks don't mean that much. Practical skill is what matters. Ranks are just for the convenience of officials. Real ability is another story. If you think people of the same rank have the same skills, you're completely wrong. There's a huge difference between a newly licensed guard watching a shop and a hero who risks their life hunting monsters." The young man hearing this looked really tired. "Geez, if you're done with your transaction, then just go stop nagging." The man turned to leave. We've known each other for a while, so if anything comes up, just call me for help." But before he could even take a step away, someone else walked in. Dujun appeared there looking straight ahead with a cold expression. Upon seeing him, the shopkeeper was struck with fear. Panicked, he pointed forward and shouted, "That's him! That's the bastard who did this to me!" The customer heard that, turned his head and asked, "This guy? He looks tall and pretty neat. He's the one who caused trouble here." The man was instantly enveloped in a cold killing intent as he glared this way. "Are you the one causing trouble here? You call yourself a hero, yet you attack a civilian. Don't you know heroes are forbidden from harming ordinary people?" Seeing this, the salesman chuckled to himself in delight. That guy is a hero with 7 years of experience, and he has a ton of connections with other heroes, so if you mess with him. But before he could even finish his thought, Dojun, who was standing there, spoke coldly. "Get lost." His words immediately threw the two men in front of him into a state of utter confusion. Dojun asked again in a serious tone, "Are you trying to get revenge or something?" Hearing this, the hero clenched his hands into fists. This little brat. However, he quickly realized something was off about the situation. Damn it, the number one cause of death for heroes isn't monsters, it's accidental fights with colleagues. At that moment, his 7-year hero instinct kicked in. Swallowing his pride, he turned to leave. "We'll meet again. I've got to get out of here." His gaze shifted back to the young salesman behind the counter. The cold voice made him bow his head in panic. "Do you seem to have a problem with me?" Just then, a large bag of magic stones was tossed into his hands. Calculate it. Faced with the pile of glittering items, the young man was completely bewildered. He couldn't make sense of it at all. Wait, are these high-grade magic stones? Who in the world is this guy? On instinct, he quickly started punching numbers into the calculator. The total comes to 150 million won. That's a truly significant amount of money. Dujun was a little displeased to hear that. Only 150 million for a day's hunt. Then give me the 150 million. The young man seemed hesitant at this request. Wait, we still need to deduct the commission. But facing Do-jun's sharp gaze, he didn't dare say another word. Did I just say the wrong thing? Do-jun let out a weary sigh. Right, the commission is 1%, so that's 148.5 million won. Hand it over. The young man imagined himself screaming in anger. "You bastard," I said. "The commission is 40%, are you deaf?" But in the end, he could only bow respectfully and say, "The thing is, for transactions over 100 million won, we need approval from management." Dujun's eyes were cold as he spoke. "Then go get it right now." He had no other choice but to call his manager directly. "Boss, this is what's happening." But before he could finish, Dojun violently snatched the phone from his hand. A nonchalant voice slowly spoke. "You heard all that right? Tell your people to pay him." The manager's voice came from the other end. "I understand all right, but please give the phone back to my employee." But before he could finish speaking, the phone was thrown straight into the wall, like a sharp dart. Dujun then spoke coldly. "Your so-called management just gave their approval. Now bring out the money." With no other choice, his voice trembling, he could only obediently bring out several large bags of money. As Dojun left, he gave a pointed reminder. "Remember to be more courteous next time." The young man was at a loss for words. You call forcing people courteous? Exactly 10 minutes later, the shop's door opened once again. The manager quickly appeared, his face full of confusion. "Hey, why weren't you answering? What was that call all about?" But what he didn't expect was to find his employee in a state of deep contemplation. "Boss, I want to quit. I really can't take it anymore." The phone shattered into pieces was a truly pitiful sight. The manager's gaze gradually turned cold. Suddenly, a ringing phone caught the employee's attention. The boss took out his phone and quickly made a call. "Hey, Urin, it's your uncle. I need you to come over." Soon after, the figure of a beautiful girl with purple hair fluttering in the spring breeze appeared on the street. The clacking sound of her high heels echoed. She walked past all the whispers from the street, paying them no mind at all. "Isn't that Heo Yuren? It really is Heo Yuren." The beautiful girl slowly raised her head and looked forward. She quickly arrived at the familiar shop. The door slowly opened, and a greeting was heard from inside. "Welcome." Suddenly, the young man exclaimed in astonishment, "Heo Yuren." She gently pulled down her hood, smiling brightly. "Yes, that's right. I'm Heo Yuren." The young salesman's eyes sparkled as he looked at the girl before him. "Heo Yuren. She's Korea's 4th S-rank female hero. I heard rumors she was the boss's niece, but is she really here?" The beautiful young woman slowly sat down on a small chair. My uncle said he's dealing with a headache because some hero was forcing a magic stone sale. His face slowly turned cold as he spoke. Can you explain the situation in detail? The scene shifts to the area where Do-jun and his family live. He sat there training while the adorable little girl behind him played happily with her new toys. Even if I hunt all day, I can only make a mere 100 million. At this rate, it will be too late. I need to be able to hunt S-rank gates alone as soon as possible, and to do that, the most important thing now is to regain my past strength. But unlike my previous world, the mana in the atmosphere here is extremely scarce. Even if I gathered mana like this every day for 3 years, no, it might take even longer. It would be great if I could find some decent equipment, but there is not much equipment here. Not even many discarded items. Do-jun suddenly sensed something. He quickly stood up, startling the little girl beside him. In a flash, he grabbed the child and rushed into the house, yelling, "Young, you have to get inside." In an instant, he scooped up the little one, entering the house with a completely different demeanor. The elderly grandmother inside slowly came out and asked, "What is wrong, Do-jun?" A tremor quickly spread, affecting everywhere. The old woman and the young child in the house could not help but shout, "What is happening? Is it an earthquake?" But a master, like Jun, of course, realized the current situation. This is not an earthquake, could it be? Just then, a giant bolt of lightning with a strange color struck down from the sky. Its power was so immense it made people feel panic. It was easy to see that the dark thing appearing in the city was a rift. Do-jun handed the child back to the grandmother inside and quickly left. "It is dangerous, do not leave the room." Following his hero's intuition, he rushed straight towards the black rift. In the end, only the sound of worried, frantic screams remained. Meanwhile, at the Seoul Hero Association, a skyscraper showcased extreme luxury and splendor. They were trying to assess the strange situation, and someone quickly reported, "Captain, a new rift has been detected in Mapo." The man called Captain slowly replied, "A new rift after 63 days, huh?" He quickly ordered the people before him, "The White Tiger Guild is closest to the Mapo area. Contact them immediately. Mobilize other nearby heroes, hurry." Then he slowly walked forward, assessing seriously, where was the rift's location detected? It is in the yard of a private residence. The captain over there could not quite believe these words. The yard of a private residence. This is really troublesome. If a civilian who is not a hero enters a new rift, no one can get in until they come out again. A hint of panic finally appeared in his eyes. Moreover, if they die in there, a monster wave will appear in 10 days at the location of the spatial rift. If that happens, the entire Seoul area will. He quickly asked the person next to him, "Has the identity of the person who entered been confirmed?" The blond man nearby replied urgently, "His name is Seo-jun, a resident of the house where the rift appeared, and his grandmother said he entered the rift to try and save his little sister." So he is not a hero. Historically, when a civilian has entered a new rift, what is the probability of a monster wave occurring? Faced with this question, the group could only remain silent, because that number was truly, frighteningly large, 99.9%. The atmosphere in the room immediately became extremely grim. Meanwhile, upon receiving a report, a certain woman angrily slammed it on the table. The blonde stepmother sitting there spoke with disgust. "He has awakened. Do-jun has awakened. What are you talking about?" The bald man on this side could only answer awkwardly. He has not registered with the Hero Association yet, but he definitely awakened at the last gate. The madam before him immediately screamed in indignation. "What the hell was that bastard Kang Lu doing? You should have killed that bastard with your own hands." The more she spoke, the angrier she got, slamming her hand on the table. "Why did you have to complicate things like this? Did you take money for it?" Her voice, tinged with madness, screamed again. "Manager Lee, remember to tell that bastard Kang Lu, if he cannot kill that bastard, he will have to pay back 10 times the amount he received." The bald man gave a slightly awkward smile. "I do not think we need to contact Kang Lu again." Hearing this, the madam asked, "What do you mean?" The man across from her continued, "A spatial rift appeared in Mapo, and it was at Do-jun's old house. We also confirmed that Do-jun entered that rift. This will be announced by the media soon." The woman sitting there was silent after hearing this, then slowly replied, "So that means we will not have to see that insolent bastard again." "Right. That is right." The madam's eyes held a hint of vigilance. Then she ordered once more, "Keep an eye on this until it is finished." "Understood." At that moment, the young man stepped into the giant rift. He found himself inside a refreshing and lush forest. Dejun looked up and carefully surveyed his surroundings. It was truly unbelievable. This is Patisiusua Forest, the place I used to visit when I was a child. The appearance of the forest, the trees and grass growing in it, and of course this wind as well. The mana in the atmosphere is abundant, and even the sky and clouds look exactly the same. So that means if I head this way. Seeing the sight before him, a faint smile appeared on Dojun's lips. Just as I thought. A giant tree was radiating a powerful light from within. This is called the World Tree, a primordial spirit tree containing an extremely pure flow of mana. The reason the previous world was destroyed was because this tree was burned down and its mana flow was destroyed. I can't believe the World Tree is still intact. I'm not sure how, but it is. Perhaps I can regain my mana from it. A faint smile slowly appeared on Dojun's lips, as if he was extremely pleased with this plan. He once again immersed himself in that brilliant flow of mana. The sound of deep breathing slowly echoed in the space. The young man was sitting there calmly cultivating his power. He slowly took one steady breath after another. 1 day, 2 days, and then 3. Time passed slowly. Forgetting to eat or drink, he spent nearly 10 days focused only on breathing. Time flew by quickly, and soon night had fallen. The young man's eyes finally opened, because in front of him now were several strangely shaped monsters. They were called Vulcana. They appeared with shimmering purple flames on their heads. He knew that this was the horde that had burned the World Tree in the past. Of course, they wouldn't get a chance to do that again. Dojun stood there looking coldly ahead. It would be nice if I had the elemental sword right now, but even as he faced those monsters, he felt no fear. Because it no longer mattered. His entire body was quickly enveloped in a brilliant light. I'll crush every single one of them. His body was completely surrounded by that blue light. He quickly created a giant flame and launched it straight ahead. Hit by the technique, the monsters could only clutch their faces and scream fiercely in pain. Dojun stared ahead with a cold, unwavering gaze. The monsters over there also began to show their true nature. They quickly surrounded him. But the young man simply released his mana, sending his opponents flying by releasing condensed mana as a gas and detonating it. Dojun finally let out a tired sigh. Phew, it's been a while since I've released this much mana at once. The giant trees in front of him once again opened their large mouths, firing massive blasts of light. The attack that shot forward was terrifyingly powerful. And yet Dojun stood there remaining perfectly calm the entire time. Because as the beams of light flew towards him, an external mana shield completely blocked them all. You could say that it seemed the World Tree itself had just saved him. Having confirmed the World Tree's safety, a faint, excited smile appeared on the young man's lips. Now it's time to see what my own mana is like. He didn't panic at all as he faced the monsters over there. They bared their sharp teeth and giant claws ready to attack, but in the blink of an eye, Dojun blocked it all with just his hands. The monsters were sent flying completely. Their bodies were struck and pitifully blown far into the distance. The flames on their bodies also gradually began to take effect, because in an instant those giant tree roots were completely burned to ashes. Those mana stones slowly began to fall. He walked forward, letting out a sigh as he quickly scanned the pile of magic stones, confirming it. A terrifying, crazed smile spread across his face. Because I've wiped every last one of you out. I should be able to get the undying embers now right. He then unleashed his immense mana, charging forward to attack everything. I remember the drop rate being pretty high. Let's see how much you all leave behind. The young man standing amidst the surrounding swarm had completely seized the advantage. In a flash, they were all sent flying. Dojun calmly gazed ahead. Right in the middle of the mana stones, a small glowing object appeared. He slowly crouched down, reaching out his hand to grab it. This must be the undying embers. The thought of getting it again truly thrilled him. A faint, excited smile played on Dojun's lips. After clenching his fist around it, he could easily control the brilliant flames with his hands. With incredible skill, he was able to completely master this power. I'd like to draw more mana from the World Tree, but my body can't handle it right now. Right now, the only thing I can do is absorb these embers and convert my mana to the fire attribute. He then pressed the radiant energy into his body. His entire body was quickly enveloped in a soft, gentle light. He could even breathe out small flames that fluttered around. In my past life, I didn't even need to absorb embers, but now it takes me 10 minutes just for one. He quickly began to move his body, getting accustomed to the new power. Just then, countless more eye-catching embers appeared on the ground below. Then I'll just have to absorb as many as I can. The young man slowly made his way through the great forest. That giant rift had long been the center of public attention. The crowd surrounding the area was in a frenzy, and countless guards in black suits had been called to the scene. The man sitting in the car couldn't help but curse. Damn it. They were in no mood to celebrate. What the hell is this all because of some crazy guy? This was Bang Seo-ong-yu. A young man stood beside him, calm and waiting patiently. He's trying to save his sister. This was Kim Hyun-woo. The surrounding crowd was in chaos, their patients wearing thin. That's just his story. He probably heard some rumor that it's easy to awaken inside a rift and rushed in without a second thought. If he wants to die, he should do it alone. What the hell is this? Seo-ong-yu carefully asked, "What did Jin-ma say?" The man beside him answered seriously, "Just follow the manual he said to wait for the wave to pass." But his teammate just couldn't understand. But why it seems rifts have appeared simultaneously in America, China, England, Turkey, and even Switzerland. So Jin-ma is probably busy dealing with all that. This is the first time something like this has happened, but they managed to get it under control quickly. But we're the ones stuck with the real problem, all because of that useless bastard, he said, grinding his teeth in fury. Seo-ong-yu clenched his fists and yelled, "If that guy who went in earlier dares to show his face, I'll beat him to a pulp." Inside, the small house remained surrounded by countless cracks. Reporters were constantly updating the situation. It has been 28 days since the new rift appeared, and the Hero Association has declared a Level 1 monster wave. This is in response to a civilian entering the rift and not coming out for 2 days. I sat on the sofa, grabbed the remote, and quickly turned off the screen. He seemed a little interested and asked, "That person is Seo-jun, isn't he?" His assistant, Kim In-gu, quickly bowed respectfully and replied, "Yes, sir. I had my subordinates confirm that it is definitely Seo-jun." Jang Seo-bae sat there with an interested look and asked, "In your opinion, what are the chances that guy makes it back alive?" The assistant replied confidently, "If he's a civilian, it's not even worth discussing. Maybe 1%. No, not even 0.1%. But the madman just sat there, smiled calmly, and said, "A civilian now, that's just ridiculous. Those damn fools at the Hero Association don't have enough information. They're completely mistaken." Before him lay his own henchman, beaten beyond recognition. Jang Seo-bae asked again, his tone serious, "What if he's an awakened?" In-gu replied with certainty, "If he's an awakened, it would depend on his hero rank. To be honest, it's difficult to make a judgment." The man leaned back wearily in his chair and replied, "Well, being a good fighter and surviving inside a rift are two different things, aren't they? That guy still has 2 relatives, doesn't he?" His words immediately took the other man by surprise. He couldn't help but think of the old man and the child from before. "What do you plan to do with them?" "For now, just keep them safe." Jang Seo-bae replied with a crazed look, "If he dies, we'll sell off his relatives' parts. But if he comes back, we'll just say we took good care of them and saddle him with the debt." Meanwhile, inside the World Tree, the power it was radiating was still incredibly strong. The young man was now completely immersed in the magical power he had just absorbed, having no idea how much time had passed. His hands could now generate an immense amount of power. Eternal ashes. I've absorbed hundreds of them. Now I can use fire-type mana whenever I want, and my fire resistance has also increased significantly. In terms of fire affinity alone, I'm in a much better state than when I was known as the Sword God. His hand slowly touched the tree trunk beside him. "Thank you, World Tree." The canopy high above swayed as if in response to his gratitude. He then quickly gathered up almost all the mana stones he had acquired. He took them and left muttering a few words to himself. "I might never see Mai again, but if we do meet again and she's in danger, I will protect her at all costs." The man's figure looked incredibly determined as he spoke those words. Meanwhile, the world outside had fallen into darkness. The young man's figure slowly appeared outside the gate. His feet slowly touched the ground. Du-jun carefully scanned his surroundings. No signs of anyone within a 1-kilometer radius. Perhaps everyone evacuated to prepare for the next wave. He could sense a slightly stronger presence in this direction. Grabbing the bag of mana stones, he quickly dashed forward. This was where the security guards were gathered. Du-jun carefully assessed the situation. Based on their uniforms, they must be with the same group from the last gate. Getting caught would be a huge problem. He then summoned the power of his own flames. Then, with a practiced motion, he hurled it into the distance. Thrown by its master, the flame had no choice but to resign to its fate and shoot forward. In an instant, it landed erupting into a massive explosion that seemed to want to wipe everything out. The men on the other side couldn't believe what they were seeing. What was that? What was that sound? It's fire. They had no choice but to rush over and investigate the cause. And those nearby who heard the loud commotion also gathered quickly. 2 security guards standing there seemed a bit surprised by the scene. What the hell is going on? Why is there a fire here? Dujun, watching from the side, saw it all. The fire's properties and targeting accuracy were both excellent. He couldn't help but think of his old friend. This Book of Flames is pretty impressive, isn't it? You must be very pleased, right? After all, you are the strongest fire mage on the continent. Hyun Woo, standing to one side, seemed to realize something was wrong with the current situation. He instinctively turned his head to look back. Wait a minute. The rift is strange. What, because they were witnessing the rift slowly shrinking with their own eyes. It was even contracting and gradually disappearing. The 2 of them instinctively ran forward. Xiang Wu couldn't believe what was happening. What's going on? Hey, the rift. That rift. His face changed completely in disbelief. They were watching as all the giant rifts in the sky began to disappear. Meanwhile, the young man was calmly heading home with his pile of mana stones. His face was even a little serious as he carefully scanned the area. The next day, the news spread quickly throughout the country. Morning news, the rift that previously appeared in Mappo disappeared this morning. Exactly 29 days after Mr. Seo entered the rift zone, the Hero Association, which had predicted a monster wave, was completely surprised by its sudden disappearance and is now conducting a thorough investigation into the cause. Meanwhile, a fire of unknown origin also broke out near the rift at a local scrapyard. People on the street chattered as they walked by. That guy must have died after going into the rift, right? Serves him right. You should stay away from rifts when they appear. Dujun said nothing, only glancing coldly at the people nearby. He's already dead. Do you have to be so harsh? Don't be so naive. If that rift hadn't closed, this place would have become a battlefield. The young man thought to himself as he walked. If it's really gone, does that mean I'll never see that world again? It's a shame, but maybe this is for the best. He gently pulled down his hood and looked up at the bright sun high above. I still have things I need to protect. After that, he quickly made his way to the familiar trading spot. As soon as he walked in, he saw a group of people standing around chatting happily. The man wore an incredibly arrogant smile. That bastard is dead, so the old woman and the kid are finished. Of course, the boss is no ordinary man. He'll squeeze at least 10 times their worth out of them. The other man lit a cigarette, looking pleased. I don't care about the old woman, but that little girl could grow up to be quite a beauty. I'm sure the boss will find a use for her. But they never expected a voice to suddenly ring out from beside them. Hey! Dujun stood there with a cold expression and slowly asked, "Where is your boss?" As usual, Zhang Xiao Bie was calmly on his way to work. He was even humming a cheerful tune, carefully using a small comb to neaten his already refined appearance. A delighted smile played on his lips. That bastard is dead. I can finally sleep peacefully. Kim, what's the schedule for today? His assistant quickly took out a small notebook. You have lunch with CEO Bex and nothing planned for the evening. Zhang Xiao Bie stood there slowly lowering his glasses. Is that so? Then tell Mrs. Kang I'll be visiting tonight and tell her to get the new girls all made up. Yes, sir. As they headed up, they heard a strange noise from the floor above. His eyes stared straight ahead, filled with utter shock, because his underling was sent flying without being able to fight back. The metallic scent of blood hit his nose, leaving him stunned. I was sent flying by that kid before I could even step inside. Do Jun stared coldly at the man before him, who could only lower his head and let out a few dry coughs. He stood there, his eyes cold. Crawl over here like a dog now. The man's entire body trembled, completely unable to resist. He then arrogantly sat on the table with the air of a superior. His voice rang out again. Did you not hear what I said? At that moment, he truly had no other choice but to obediently and slowly crawl forward. Dujun spoke again, his tone condescending. Bark, a bastard like you doesn't even deserve to be treated like a human. Now bark like a dog. The man over there was completely helpless, but he knew very well that he had no other way to escape. So all he could do was obediently lower his head and start barking. The sound of woof woof rang in his ears, and the more he barked, the more frenzied he became, as if descending into some indescribable madness. The sound of his barking was utterly humiliating in front of his underlings kneeling off to the side. Dujun sat there and coldly commanded louder. You act all submissive to my face, but you're just waiting for a chance to stab me in the back. Zhang Xiaobai, do you think this is my first time dealing with rats like you? His eyes grew terrifyingly cold. The man couldn't fight back at all. He could only bow his head and scream, "Please spare my life. I'll be as obedient as a dog." Dujun had no patience to hear him anymore and fiercely kicked the man in the head. "Shut up." The man was sent flying from the kick, spitting out a large mouthful of blood. He sat there and spoke once more. "You with the glasses. From now on, you're the boss. Stop working like a dog for scum like this. Getting rid of your superior isn't a big deal for you guys, is it? You have my permission, so just do it. Over there." Ingu was so flustered he didn't know what to do. He quickly bowed his head. "But our boss has a lot of connections. If I suddenly become the boss, people will definitely think something is wrong." His voice trembled as he spoke. "Instead, please just spare him this once." The young man over there asked coldly, "Why are you so stupid?" Dujun spoke coldly. "Just stuff him in a drum and dump him in the sea or crush him at a junkyard. Isn't that what you guys are good at? If you really don't want to do it, I can throw you into a gate as monster feed." His words immediately threw everyone present into a panic. Chang Seobei knelt on the ground, pleading miserably, "Please just spare my life. Just spare me and I'll work like a dog for the rest of my life." He bowed his head in misery, saying respectfully, "I swear it, I'm begging you." Dujun sat there thinking carefully. Getting rid of this guy would be the cleanest way to solve everything. He couldn't help but sigh. "Have I gotten too soft?" He extended his hand forward and said softly, "All right." The man's eyes lit up, filled with immense gratitude. His trembling hand slowly reached for him. "I've been wrong all this time. From now on, I will serve you." But before he could finish his sentence, he was stunned by the sight before him, because with incredible ease, Dujun summoned a great flame that completely incinerated the man. A blood-curdling scream of agony echoed in the air. Dujun sat there and said coldly, "This is your last chance." The man's hands were quickly burned to a crisp. Nothing was left but charred ashes. He clutched what was left of his hands, whimpering and crying out on the ground. Dujun glanced back coldly. "If even a single scratch appears on any of my family members, I will kill every last one of you. You will guard them 24/7 for the rest of your lives." Officially, Dojun was an entity who had disappeared along with the rift at a roadside McDonald's. The government, the Hero Association, and all forms of media had declared him dead. Even his professional license had been completely nullified. Meanwhile, the young man was enjoying a meal with his little sister. Dujun thought to himself with a cold gaze, "Even if I tell them I'm alive, it will only bring me trouble. That guy will help me find a new house soon, so we can just take our time moving." Across from him, Yu Yeun was happily eating her hamburger. The little girl smiled excitedly and looked at him saying, "This is great, now we can finally move." Dujun said seriously, "You can go to kindergarten like the other kids, and you'll go to school next year too." But upon hearing this, the little girl's expression fell, and she looked unhappy. Dujun was taken aback and asked worriedly, "What's wrong? You don't want to go to kindergarten." The little girl replied softly, "Yeah, the other kids tease me because I don't have parents." Her words immediately left the young man stunned. He quickly replied, "It's okay, then you don't have to go. You don't need to be around those jerks. You can just start school next year." Hearing this, the little girl broke into a happy smile. "Really? I don't have to go to kindergarten?" "Yep, you don't have to go." Anger welled up inside Dojun as he considered his options. Maybe I should send her to a prestigious private school so no one would dare look down on her. He couldn't help but recall the other day. It was late at night when he had angrily demanded, "You put an old woman and a child up in a motel. Are you an idiot?" His words immediately made the man flustered. Inwoo could only bow his head and answer respectfully, "This motel is managed by our company, so it's very safe. Forget it." The moment the little girl inside saw him, she broke into a happy smile. "You're here." The little girl rushed forward and threw her arms around him, crying out, "Brother." Meanwhile, his elderly grandmother, her face etched with worry, slowly took his hand. "Dujun, you really came back safely." Yu Yeun continued to hug him tightly, crying her eyes out. This was the first time Dojun had ever faced a situation like this, and he was honestly a little flustered. He couldn't help but give a small smile and reply calmly, "I'm back." Yu Yeun suddenly looked up at him with a blank expression and asked, "Brother, are you a hero too?" Hearing this, he smiled teasingly. "What's wrong? You want me to be a hero?" The little girl quickly replied with certainty, "No, I wish you weren't a hero." "Why is that?" The little girl spoke with a very determined voice. "Because heroes can die when they fight those scary monsters. But I just hope you'll live with me and Grandma for a very, very long time." As she said this, tears streamed down her small face, unable to be held back. He sat there wanting to say something but held back. In the end, he just listened silently to what the little girl wanted to say. Her words were etched into his mind. I hope you will live with me and Grandma for a long time. For a long time. In the harsh world of the past, I was also the last survivor. I spent a very long time fighting monsters and lost so much. Before I could even realize something precious had appeared by my side, even though I had long forgotten about them. Perhaps here, in this very place, I think I can live happily and quietly protect this happiness. The city scenery here was incredibly extravagant and splendid. In a high-rise building home to the Korean Hero Association, a small meeting seemed to be taking place. Na Tai Huang, a powerful man, founder of the Hero Association and director of the World Hero Federation, stood there, looking out seriously. You really couldn't find out why. The woman behind him bowed respectfully and replied, "No, we don't have any information on the current situation. I apologize." The man answered seriously, "How disappointing. That also means the rift that disappeared on its own could reappear at any moment." The woman behind him could only continue awkwardly. Exactly when variables appear, it's very dangerous. It's as if a monster wave had already occurred. But before she could finish, he cut her off. "Watch your words." The man in front spoke again angrily. "For the safety of the citizens, this is a fortunate outcome." The woman behind him bowed respectfully again. "I'm sorry I misspoke. Na Tai Huang, one of the 100 most respected heroes in the world. They say he would be elected president with the highest votes in history if he ran, and he could easily overthrow the country's major corporations if he so desired. But his interests lay not in the presidency or those corporations, but in the safety of the people and preparing for the rifts." The middle-aged man spoke again. "Even if it takes time, investigate it thoroughly once more. I understand. The residents in the rift area have also agreed to sell their homes." "All right, very good. Offer a price slightly above the market rate so they don't feel let down. It would be good to offer some comfort to those who have lost their families." The computer on the desk was now glowing. He carefully glanced down, his mind filled with assessment. They say these rifts have also appeared simultaneously in many other countries. Something is wrong. The woman behind him asked awkwardly, "Haven't America and China already entered the control phase?" "The main problem is in Britain." Tai Huang continued seriously. "Reliable heroes have already been dispatched to the other rifts." Just then, a notification popped up on the screen. The man's eyes widened in astonishment, completely in disbelief. "Impossible. What's wrong?" "Because the information was transmitted here very quickly. An urgent bulletin from the World Hero Federation. A monster wave has occurred at the rift in Britain." The flow of people on the street was still bustling. He once again seemed to merge with the crowd. The familiar shop banner quickly appeared before him. The door slowly opened. The young shop assistant standing there instinctively greeted him, "Welcome." But as soon as he saw the familiar customer, he panicked and let out a few yells. Then he quickly signaled to the man reading a newspaper next to him, "Manager, it's that bastard. It's this guy." The manager quickly closed his newspaper and slowly asked, "Is it this person? Are you the one? The one who forced the sale of magic stones while I was away?" He said, standing up seriously. Unafraid, the young man simply replied calmly, "That's right. I have a lot of magic stones to sell today. I hope there's someone with enough authority to handle it immediately." He quickly threw his backpack onto the table. The manager stood there, thinking to himself he probably brought another pile of unprocessed, low-grade magic stones like last time. With that assumption in mind, he quickly tried to send him away. "We don't do business with you. Please leave." He asked back seriously and coldly, "You don't do business." The manager said angrily, "You don't seem to understand, but a 1% commission fee causes huge losses. We won't be dealing with you anymore, so just take your things and get out of here." Hearing this, Dujun just gave a faint, calm smile. "You're going to regret this." But the manager over there was still very certain about what he had just said. "You don't listen to reason at all. There's a reason why even the Gate Center charges a 5% commission." The man's expression was cold as he looked at him and said sternly, "Take your bag and leave now, and don't ever come back here again." And just like that, he actually picked it up. But then he quickly turned it upside down, revealing countless sparkling stones inside. The salesman standing over there was completely stunned by what he was seeing. Even the manager next to him was utterly shocked, because what appeared were hero magic stones. Why would there be hero magic stones more valuable than anything else in there? He stood there with a faint smile on his lips and said, "If you don't want them, then forget it." Hero magic stones were an upgraded version of those regular magic stones. In the middle, there was even a beautiful blue crystal. When a notorious drug dealer in Mexico tried to break down a magic stone to produce drugs, it exploded. The magic stone's power was unleashed, and he awakened as a hero. Since then, this magic stone became famous as an essential item for awakening heroes or enhancing magical power. It came to be called the Hero Magic Stone. It was both a hard-to-find energy source and a super expensive commodity. The two of them were in complete disbelief as they witnessed the sparkle of those stones. He said with a cold expression, "Pack it up. I'm leaving now." But the store manager was ecstatic about what he was about to get. "My dearest customer, could you please sit and wait for just a moment?" After that, although the employee was extremely reluctant, he still had to meticulously clean each stone in front of him. As for Do-jun, he remained completely calm from beginning to end. The manager sitting opposite him seemed a bit flustered by what he had just heard. "Don't you think a commission fee of 0.5% is a bit unreasonable?" Do-jun knew he had other options, so his face showed displeasure as he said, "If you don't like it, then forget it." The manager quickly corrected himself. "It's not that I don't like it, I'm just curious. Why do you want to change it to 0.5%? He answered very seriously, "Because you're too noisy." As soon as he said that, the manager quickly bowed his head and apologized. "I'm truly sorry, I was being thoughtless." But he didn't change his mind at all. "I'm tired of apologies. Just tell me if you accept that commission fee or not." The employee standing nearby couldn't understand why his manager had to kneel and beg for forgiveness like that. My God, that insufferable bastard has absolutely no manners. In the end, the manager could only resign himself to his fate and accept the fee. "All right, fine." Then he put on a serious expression and continued, "Magic stones are valuable items, so much so that some companies might pay you the purchase price without any commission. But you won't always have hero magic stones, right? Eventually, you'll need the commission. So if you sell all the magic stones to us, the transaction fee will be 10% in the future." Before he could finish, he was cut off. "You're dragging this out." Do-jun turned to leave with an annoyed expression. "If you don't like it, forget it." But the man behind him quickly stopped him. 9%. We're really taking a loss on this." Their haggling continued. "Then don't take a loss. 8%. If the boss finds out about this, he'll literally kill me." "Then don't do things that will get you killed." 7%. "I really can't go any lower." "No one asked you to." 6%. "There's really no profit left." How can a merchant survive without profit? The employees standing there really couldn't understand how long this conversation would drag on. The manager knelt on the ground, filled with utter helplessness. Do-jun spoke with a cold gaze. "Considering our past relationship, I'll accept 1%. Those words really made the manager want to curse. What a blatant ripoff! But he couldn't say any of it out loud, ultimately swallowing his words. Do-jun spoke up once more. "Let me tell you something first. I have about 7 more bags just like this one." As soon as he said that, the two men were so shocked they couldn't believe it. A commotion quickly erupted inside the store. "Bring the contract here now." He checked the 67 billion won in his account, looking somewhat pleased. At this rate, that 110 billion won house isn't so far off. But the problem is, to get high-level magic stones gates aren't enough. If only I could move freely through the rift zones. Before he could even process all his thoughts, a notification sound came from his phone. The manager standing there asked anxiously, "What's this? Is there a new monster wave?" "It's in the UK. I thought the monster wave had already occurred in the southern region of England. Business travelers and tourists should adjust their schedules immediately. The embassy is also confirming the safety of overseas residents." Do-jun looked down with a cold expression as if assessing the situation. "An administrative warning message from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a monster wave, has occurred in the southern region of England. Business travelers and tourists should adjust their schedules immediately. The embassy is confirming the safety of overseas residents." He stared straight ahead with a cold, pensive look. Do-jun turned and left the shop, leaving the owner stunned. He pulled up his hood and strolled down the bustling sidewalk with his hands in his pockets. "In the past, I would have gone to seal the rift no matter which nation or association was involved, but not anymore." Do-jun walked alone, continuing on his own path. A delicious piece of grilled meat sizzled as it was flipped on the grill. Grandma and Eugene stared intently at the meat grilling on the stove. Little Eugene was practically drooling. Do-jun took his grandmother and sister out for a lavish barbecue meal with a dedicated server grilling the meat for them right at their table. Grandma opened the menu, her expression worried. Dujun isn't 251 for 100 grams a bit expensive. He sat across from his grandmother, calmly sipping his water. I made a lot of money this time, so don't worry. Please eat as much as you like. The little one couldn't wait any longer and picked up a piece of steaming hot meat, blowing on it to cool it down. Eugene popped the grilled meat into her mouth, her eyes widening and sparkling with pure satisfaction. Eugene joyfully expressed how surprisingly delicious the high-quality grilled meat was. Grandma still hadn't picked up her chopsticks, instead, watching the meat being evenly flipped on the grill. He glanced down, pausing for a moment at the sight before him. Then he said to the server, "We'll have 4 servings each of the premium foreign charcoal grilled ribs, beef thigh, and bird's nest." The waitress smiled and bowed in acknowledgement. Grandma looked at Dujun worriedly. "Isn't that a bit much, dear? How can we possibly eat all that?" Dujun picked up a piece of meat with a bright smile. "Let's just eat our fill today, Grandma. You should eat too." Grandma sighed gloomily. "Oh my goodness." Just then, a fork with a piece of grilled meat was offered to her. Eugene looked over with a radiant, innocent expression, holding out a piece of juicy, perfectly cooked meat on her fork. "Grandma, the meat is so delicious, you have to try it." Grandma praised her. "Our little Eugene is such a good girl," and ate the piece of meat her granddaughter offered. With just one chew, an explosion of flavor hit her, and her eyes lit up with a look of pure astonishment. The family of 3 laughed and joked, enjoying the wonderful meal together. Just then, a woman in a long black dress and pointed high heels walked into the restaurant, surprising the other customers. Ju-Jen's sudden appearance in the barbecue restaurant captured the attention of every male customer there. She stopped and called out Mr. Seo Do-jun. Do-jun, who was in the middle of a bite, turned his head to look. Ju-Jen pushed her sunglasses up onto her hair, her captivating purple eyes fixed on him. "Can we talk for a moment?" She continued with her questions. "So you're the hero," Dujun-hee replied coldly. "Can't you see I'm eating with my family?" He gave her a cold look and dismissed her. "If you have something to say, come back after I've finished my meal." Ju-Jen stood frozen in silence, not resisting at all. Her face was arrogant, a smirk on her lips, but her eyes couldn't hide her astonishment. Inwardly, Ju-Jen was screaming, "Do you have any idea who I am? I'm Hyunju General." But on the outside, she remained silent, or rather speechless. After a moment of hesitation, she bowed her head, yielding to his dismissal. "Fine." Inside, Ju-Jen was cursing him. "Who does this guy think he is, ignoring me like this?" And so, the waiting began in the lobby. Ju-Jen obediently sat on an empty chair in the restaurant to wait for Do-jun to finish his dinner, causing all the other patrons to glance her way. The men mesmerized by her beauty blushed shyly, and even the female customers couldn't help but turn and whisper to each other, "That's Hyunju-jen, isn't it?" The S-rank hero and world star Hyunju-jen Shi seemed to glitter standing out in the small, crowded barbecue joint. The onlookers kept whispering, "Yes, yes, she definitely deserves to be on the list of the world's most beautiful heroes." They turned curiously to look at her cold expression. But who is she waiting for, making Hyunju-jen wait? Who could be that important? Ju-Jen paid no mind to the chatter around her, lost in her own thoughts. Seo Do-jun 2 months ago was the first time he entered a gate, and he came out alive. She glanced towards Do-jun's table with his grandmother and sister. He was suspected of having awakened at that time and was thought to have died in the recent Mapo Rift incident. But here he was alive and eating. Do-jun was skewering 4 pieces of grilled meat together, about to eat them under Eugene's eager gaze. She recalled the moment he glanced at her. Just one look, one sentence from him, had made her tense up. But a newly awakened person reaching S rank in less than 2 months. Even the oil tycoon Capomo, who spent a fortune on magic stones, took 5 years to reach S rank after his awakening. She swallowed at the thought, then silently dismissed it. There's no way that guy is an S rank. He must have some kind of special ability. A chair scraped lightly as it was pushed back. Do-jun's family, full and satisfied, began to get up and leave. "I'm so full." The little girl walked happily beside her grandma, who smiled watching her granddaughter's joy. Do-jun followed them, a gentle smile on his face. At that moment, Ju-Jen also stood up and looked their way. Do-jun saw her too. Suddenly, a foot stepped out, blocking their path. Do-jun's expression changed instantly as he stared coldly at the newcomer. A blond guy with earrings and a jagged, mocking smile blocked Do-jun's path. He spoke arrogantly. "Well, what do we have here, Seo Do-jun? So I wasn't just imagining things? How the hell did you crawl out of that gate?" Do-jun thought the man's name Kang Cheon-woo. The guy got right in his face, his open hand clenching. He He looked down on Do-jun with contempt. I knew you were a cockroach, but I didn't think you'd actually scurry out like one. Juden, standing behind them, was shocked by his insane behavior in front of everyone. Kang Cheon-woo right now. The big guy smirked contemptuously at Do-jun, completely oblivious to his shifting mood. Do-jun remained silent, keeping his hands in his pockets as he watched him. Do-jun lowered his head to hide his expression, trying to sidestep the brainless brute. He asked Juden behind him, "Hey, you said you had something to discuss with me, right?" Only then did Kang Cheon-woo notice Juden was there. He turned his head in surprise. Hyun Juden. What? The moment he turned, Juden covered her face, wanting nothing to do with the muscle-headed brute. Do-jun looked at her coldly. I'll hear you out. Just take care of my family for a moment. Juden asked timidly, what exactly do you need? They completely ignored the troublemaker Kang Cheon-woo, leaving him stunned. Do-jun glanced back to where his grandmother was trying to shield his little sister. Just call a taxi and send them home. Juden was alarmed by his request. Do-jun's demeanor shifted entirely. His eyes flashed with a cruel, vengeful fire. Some debts need to be collected. Kang Cheon-woo, still clueless, continued to look down on Do-jun, grinning foolishly. Outside the barbecue restaurant, the moon was high in the sky. Juden did as Do-jun asked, calling a taxi and helping his grandmother and sister into the car. Don't worry too much, just get in. Once the little girl and her grandmother were safely in the taxi, she closed the door and waved to them. Bye-bye to this little cutie too. Juden smiled brightly as she waited for the car to drive off. She let out a small sigh of relief only after the taxi was steadily down the road. The scene inside the restaurant was not as peaceful as it was outside. Tables, chairs, and chandeliers were all shaking from some kind of impact. Do-jun stood sideways, his right hand raised to his face, his eyes devoid of warmth as he stared forward. The commotion caused the other patrons to stand up and see what was happening. Kang Cheon-woo had been hit by a thunderous slap from Do-jun, his cheek now swollen red and deformed. Furious from the blow, his eyes turned bloodshot. He gritted his teeth and cursed at Do-jun, you goddamn bastard. Just as he was fuming, a waitress approached with a tray, bowing carefully to remind them, excuse me, sirs, if you do that in here. Kang Cheon-woo, enraged from being slapped, took his anger out on the weaker target, smacking the waitress. Get the hell out of my way. His action made her scream in fear. The waitress was knocked to the ground, her tray clattering beside her. Another female customer rushed to help her up. He screamed, get out now! The other customers started to flee from the crazed Kang Cheon-woo. He went berserk, the whites of his eyes showing and veins popping on his face as he yelled at Do-jun, do you want to die? Do you have a death wish, you son of a bitch? But his barks were worse than his bite. While Kang Cheon-woo was still screaming curses, another blow flew straight at his face. Without another word, Do-jun moved past him and delivered another strike. Kang Cheon-woo felt the pain again. He dropped to one knee, clutching his face with one hand. Do-jun glared down at Kang Cheon-woo with razor-sharp eyes. He asked the bastard who was covering his bleeding mouth, you took me to the gate and locked me in to die, didn't you? Do-jun's face became terrifying. His eyes filled with hatred. We have a lot to talk about, don't we? But Kang Cheon-woo was still fearless. Kneeling on the ground, he lowered his hand from his mouth and continued to taunt him with contempt. What is there to talk about with a bastard abandoned by his own father? Your stepmother told you to go die. Do-jun took out his cell phone. The lock screen showed the time was 12 o'clock at night. He immediately hit the record button. Then he raised the phone coldly, recording Kang Cheon-woo kneeling at his feet. Say that again. The madman suddenly let out a savage laugh. He exhaled through his clenched teeth. His fist ignited with flames. Say what? Kang Cheon-woo lunged forward to punch Do-jun in the face, cursing relentlessly. Was your mother some kind of tramp? Die right here, Seo Do-jun. His fist aimed straight for Do-jun's head, but he just stood there calmly, as if it were no big deal. Do-jun's eyes flashed. He enveloped his body with his power, effortlessly blocking Kang Cheon-woo's punch with just one hand. Not only did he block the punch, Do-jun's power repelled it, sending that piece of trash flying backwards. He was shocked. His own fist was knocked back. Before him stood an expressionless Do-jun, a blue light gathering in front of his hand. A non-contact blow sent Kang Cheon-woo flying backward, and Do-jun then rushed toward him. The whole barbecue restaurant shook once again. The terrified female employee fumbled as she tried to call the police. What was the number for the police again? 1111. Before the other end could pick up, a beautiful hand took the phone from the employee. Please, don't worry. Eugen held the employee's phone, smiling like a friendly pageant queen. I will handle this. The girl was completely panicked by now, her eyes filled with tears as she stammered her thanks to Eugen. Yes, thank you. Meanwhile, Do-jun was busy teaching the insolent Kang Che-onu a lesson with his fists. He casually knelt on one knee while beating the man, unafraid of any counterattack. Eugen watched the one-sided battle from behind, thinking that Kang Che-onu was a B-rank hero, yet he was being so easily overwhelmed. She stepped closer. B rank or higher, A rank or higher. Even if he were an A rank, could he really overwhelm a B rank to that extent? Eugen called out Seo Ju-jun. Hearing her voice, he stopped his movements, his fist freezing in midair. He glanced at the person behind him as she warned, "If you do that, you'll be finished." Du-jun frowned, displeased with the current situation. But he understood what Eugen meant, so he let go of that trash who looked down on others, letting him fall to the ground. He stood up and flicked his hands as if disgusted by having touched the man. Eugen asked him, "This person, how much do you know about Kang Che-onu?" He looked at her indifferently. "I think I know a good deal of what's necessary. Why is it important?" Eugen sighed. "It's very important. Because Kang Che-onu's cousin is the S-rank hero Kang Il-yongbit, the truly strong one who backs his useless little brother." Du-jun calmly replied, "I know. Is there a problem?" Eugen was quite surprised by his answer. She sized up the man before her. He already knew. And yet he still has that nonchalant attitude. This man is truly reckless. Eugen spoke about the trash on the ground, beaten unrecognizable by Ju-jun. That arrogant Kang Che-onu has been able to run wild because Kang Il-yongbit protected him. So what you Seo Ju-jun just did was very dangerous. I know a little about the feud between you two, but it would be a mistake to think Kang Il-yongbit will be understanding about this. Hearing that, Do-jun scoffed. Seeing him laugh, Eugen asked in surprise, "Kang Il-yongbit, you're not afraid of Kang Il-yongbit, are you?" He stepped forward, facing her coldly. "By the way, the fact that you know so much about me is starting to bother me." His gaze was chillingly sharp, and Eugen could only press her lips together, not daring to say another word. The tense atmosphere between them made the female employee hiding behind the counter want to scream. She thought to herself, "You said you would handle it." After a moment of being flustered, Eugen calmly stated her reason for seeking him out. "I'm sorry for the sudden visit. My uncle asked for a favor." She got straight to the point. "You went to Gaisan Sodong Iman to sell magic stones, right? Sell them to me." Du-jun didn't beat around the bush, asking bluntly, "How much?" Eugen said casually, "I'll buy all the ones you have, Du-jun." He smiled. "That's quite a large amount." Eugen was just as confident. The wealth of an S-rank hero is greater than you can imagine. He said to her, "Everything has a price, but I have a condition." Eugen asked a condition. They were so engrossed in their transaction that no one noticed Kang Che-onu clutching his stomach on the floor. Du-jun smiled, his eyes glinting slyly as he looked at her. "It's nothing big, just something you can do easily, Eugen." The scene changes to another place. A liquor bottle is thrown, shattering on the ground and splashing its contents everywhere. Jun's stepmother, holding a bottle, screamed in anger. "I was told he was dead. I was told he entered a new crack and died." She continued to throw bottles to the ground. Manager Lee could only bow his head in helpless silence. He said nervously, I'm sorry. Apparently even the Hero Association believed he was dead. She dropped all pretense and yelled, "Don't make excuses. What are you going to do about this?" Manager Lee wiped the sweat from his bald head with a handkerchief. "Well, there's also something else I need to report." Kang Che-onu was attacked by Do-jun in retaliation. Hearing this, Hai-do was shocked and asked Kang Che-onu what happened to that bastard. Manager Lee hesitated. Could it be that Seo Do-jun knows something? His words struck Hai-do like a bolt of lightning, leaving her speechless. She swallowed hard, feeling a sense of unease. Hai-do looked off in one direction. "If this reaches my father-in-law or my husband, it will be troublesome, but it can be managed somehow. However, if it's revealed to the press, the company's stock price could fall, so that must be prevented at all costs." She pointed at Manager Lee and ordered block the media, prevent it from becoming news, and of course, that includes the Taija Group. The VK Group will also cut our ads and stop cooperating. Tell the police to keep quiet. Go now. Manager Lee, have the police and the media been silenced? Good job, Manager Lee. But, that's not a permanent solution, right? That's why I wanted to mention that Kang Tai-on-woo's cousin is Kang Ye-ong-bit. She looked up and asked manager Lee Kang Ye-ong-bit, the Kang Ye-ong-bit I know. Kang Tai-on-woo is known as trash even in the hero community. He's a notorious playboy who flaunts designer clothes and women in his supercar on the highway. People thought Kang Ye-ong-bit really cared for Kang Tai-on-woo because they appeared very close in public, even dining together at luxury restaurants and happily enjoying wine. But in reality, Kang Tai-on-woo was just the one doing all of Kang Ye-ong-bit's dirty work. Both brothers are terrible figures among the heroes. Manager Lee looked at his boss grimly. If Kang Tai-on-woo was being manipulated by the police and media, it wouldn't be good for Kang Ye-ong-bit either, so it seemed that side had gotten involved. First, we need a meeting. Arrange one as soon as possible. Yes, I understand. She leaned back in her chair, continuing to question Manager Lee and Director Huang Trang, CEOB of HCS Capital. Has he betrayed us? Yes, I heard he is taking care of Jun's family. With a venomous look in her eyes, Hai-do ordered contact Prosecutor Park as well. He'll pay the price for daring to abandon me and choose the other side. The scene changes to a gate guarded by members of the association. They are checking the information of the team preparing to enter. There are a total of 37 fissure zones in Korea. Among them, 5 fissure zones are currently transforming into gates. The rest can only be hunted by heroes affiliated with the Hero Association according to a schedule. The association member guarding this newly transformed gate carefully scanned the arriving group's information. After confirming the details, the member returned the ID card to Du Zien. Hero Du Zien, your identity is confirmed. We wish you a safe expedition. Du Zien's group proceeded into the gate. From the back, Duruni silently assessed the gate. This time there was only one entrance, and even though they knew it was Hero Du Zien, they still performed a thorough identity check and maintained strict control. Dong In-do, an A-class hero from the Korean Hero Association and the guildmaster of the Hoa Gam Guild, glanced at Du Zien with a smile. Zien, it's strange for you to be the one to suggest hunting in a fissure zone first, isn't it? Caught off guard, Du Zien replied, I was just bored and had nothing else to do. With that, she turned to look at the person walking behind her. Du-jun, wearing a backpack and a hood, silently followed the group into the gate. She recalled the condition he had set that day. There was only one condition. If you let me into the fissure zone, I'll sell all the magic stones I get to you at market price. The reason hunting in the fissure zone pays more. Du Zien was suspicious. Going into a dangerous fissure zone just for that, this guy is not normal. Even if it wasn't for my uncle's request, I still need magic stones. I'll be fine since I'm a hero, but as she was lost in thought, the end of the tunnel opened up to a lush green forest and a tranquil lake. Du Zien led the way out, followed by In-do as they entered the dense woods. At that moment, In-do playfully ran up to tease Du Zien. Tell me the truth. Who is that man? Feeling helpless and not wanting to explain, she answered curtly, he's just an acquaintance. In-do persisted, pestering Du Zien for more information. Just an acquaintance, you expect me to believe that Do-jun remained silent following the group of heroes. Is he a potential boyfriend? Du Zien denied it. It's not like that. I just owe him a small favor, so I brought him along to repay it. In-do was stunned. A favor? The S-class hero Du Zien owes someone a favor. The other members of the group were relaxed, chatting and joking with each other. Only Do-jun remained silent. Suddenly, a strange wind blew swirling leaves into the air and catching everyone's attention. Do-jun finally looked up, his eyes cold. The 6 members of the group immediately got into a fighting stance, only Do-jun remained calm and still. A beast with widespread wings and sharp talons dove from the sky. It aimed straight for Du Zien's group, letting out a threatening screech. In-do shouted in shock, a cockatrice! Du Zien turned and gave orders Shinzo and Do-yun on defense. COA, aim for the legs. They were just assigning their positions when Do-jun coldly charged forward. Without a word, he leaped into the air directly facing the massive monster. Du Zien was horrified. Mr. Seo Do-jun. The others in the group stared at the sky, their jaws dropped in astonishment. Do-jun clenched his fist, channeling power into his right arm. First one. In-do held his weapon in shock, the first one right after we entered the gate. The cockatrice charged towards them. Unnoticed by anyone, Do-jun dropped his backpack to the ground. Du Zien gave out orders. Du Zien and Do-eun take defensive positions. COA aim for its legs. But just as she finished speaking, Do-jun charged forward like a wild beast. He leaped up. In an instant, Do-jun shot up to face the cockatrice in midair. His fist was brimming with energy. A single punch was aimed straight at the giant prey before him, and the mutant sand toad was sent flying instantly by Do-jun's punch. After landing his punch, he leaped back to the ground. The impact was so strong that the ground beneath Do-jun's feet shattered. Dugan, holding her sword, silently watched Do-jun's display. The defeated mutant sand toad lay on the ground right at his feet. A deep indentation from Do-jun's punch was clearly visible on its head. The members of Dugan's hero party were astonished. What was that? It died in one hit. Not just them, even Dugan was stunned, staring wide-eyed at this terrifying scene. Do-jun calmly lifted his foot and replied, "Not yet." He jumped up and delivered another blow to the beast. This should finish it off for good. The entire group of heroes was stunned into silence. A tense Indu turned her head and asked Susan, "What is he?" But even Susan didn't know the extent of his power, so she gave Indu a vague answer. He's just a very strong person. Indu couldn't accept that answer and ran to grab Dugan, shaking her relentlessly. How can you say that how many heroes can defeat a mutant sand toad in a single blow? Dugan adjusted her glasses, which were about to fall off from the shaking, and said defensively, "If it's just about taking it down, you could do it too. So why are you acting like this?" Indu didn't give up pounding on Dugan's bulletproof vest as she pressed on. "You saw it with your own eyes, and you're still trying to downplay it. Besides, in that aerial battle, it couldn't even dodge. The attack got hit and went down in just one hit." That bird wasn't some ordinary monster either. Indu's last sentence seemed to snap Dugan out of it. She looked over at Do-jun, who was taking tools out of his backpack, and wondered, who is that man really? Dugan's expression turned serious. "Sis, we need to change the plan." She clipped her sunglasses to her shirt. "I'm heading to the central district for a bit." Dugan's sudden decision startled the entire team, and they stared at her with wide eyes. "Hey," she called out to Do-jun, who had taken out a knife and was starting to carve up the mutant sand toad's body. Do-jun pulled a crimson gem from the monster's body. He looked at it intently and said to Dugan, "I have no intention of sharing with those who didn't contribute." She was speechless at his words. "I didn't intend to ask for a share, you know." Do-jun calmly put the red gem into his backpack. Dugan twirled a lock of her beautiful hair. "It seems your strength is wasted in a place like this. Interested in going deeper." Hearing that, he smiled smugly. Do-jun raised his sharp dagger, his gaze focused. "Sounds good." Dugan walked past him. "I'm familiar with the terrain here, so I'll lead the way. Stick close if you don't want to get lost." With that, Dugan dashed off, leaving behind a gust of wind that blew through Do-jun's hair. He watched Dugan's figure shrinking in the distance. Do-jun slung his backpack over his shoulder and crouched into a runner's starting stance. Whoosh! The spot where his feet were sank slightly, and the wind and dust kicked up by his speed forced the remaining team members to shield their faces. They stood there watching Do-gyun's back also grow smaller in the distance. If Dugan is a bullet, then that guy is a beam of light. He's truly like light. A team member with a weapon slung over his shoulder asked, "Indu guild leader, aren't we going?" Indu raised a hand to her brow as if trying to see as far as possible. "Do you think you can keep up?" He answered awkwardly, "Of course not." Easier said than done. So she made a decision. "Forget it, we're just background characters today. Let's just hunt around here. Like usual." "Yes, ma'am." Everyone gradually dispersed to find their own targets, while Indu stood there silently looking at the corpse of the slain mutant sand toad on the ground. An A-rank hero is already revered and admired by everyone but. She looked at the poor beast's condition, its head and jaw smashed by the punch. A light breeze blew past, and Indu understood very well that in front of an S-rank, they are nothing but insignificant beings. Dugan is the same, and so is that man. Indu's expression became complicated. Meanwhile, Dugan shot forward like a bullet just fired from a gun. She glanced back over her shoulder, her speed not slowing in the slightest. Dugan looked at the empty path behind her and thought to herself, "Should I slow down a little?" But just then, Do-jun suddenly appeared right beside her and spoke, startling her. "Can't you go any faster?" Startled by him, she lost her momentum and balance, stumbling and nearly falling. Meanwhile, Do-jun, not understanding what she was doing, simply sped past her. Dugan couldn't believe what was happening right before her eyes. What he caught up to me, I'm supposed to be the second fastest in all of Korea. Do-jun then slowed down, jogging backward. He looked back, his face expressionless. "You're slower than I thought. You were running as if you didn't want anyone to catch up." Embarrassed, Dugan snapped, "Who said I didn't want anyone to catch up?" The two of them stopped. She leaned on her knees, panting heavily, her face red from a lack of oxygen. "I've never been like that." Dojun ignored her, raising his hand to observe the situation. In the far distance stood a tall, imposing mountain. He asked, his voice trembling, "Hey, what's over there?" She looked in the direction he indicated. "That place," Jugen answered honestly. "That is where the boss monster of this rift area is." "A boss monster!" Dojun stared at the high, treacherous mountain. Jugen began to explain, "Yes, have you heard of Gaerian? It is a giant 20-meter-long monster that looks like a flying lizard with a body like hard armor that can breathe fire. Do not even think about facing it. You need at least 3 S-rank heroes to defeat it." Dojun ignored the last part of her warning. "Is that the one that has the high-grade magic stone?" She looked at him. "Yes, it drops a high-grade magic crystal just below the supreme grade. Are you even listening to what I am saying?" Jugen took a step forward, her expression extremely serious. She held out a hand as if to stop him, her expression tense as she probed. "You are not seriously thinking of taking it down, are you? I did not bring you here for you to do something so reckless." But the person who needed to hear it was already gone. Dojun had already charged ahead, leaving Jugen with nothing but a fleeting dark shadow. She screamed internally, completely horrified, "Oh my God, what do you think you are doing?" Jugen did not hesitate and rushed after him to stop him. "Dojun, stop right now." The two figures seemed to be chasing each other through the quiet forest. They both picked up speed, leaving only clouds of dust in their wake. The mountain home of the Rift's boss monster was now right before their eyes. Jugen's eyes widened in astonishment. She stood frozen in the wind. What in the world happened? Dojun had once again displayed a scene of horrific slaughter for Jugen. The 20-meter-long monster, she said, needed 3 S-rank heroes to defeat, was lying dead on the ground right in front of her. What in the world is going on? She stared silently at the boss's corpse while Dojun skillfully took his tools out of his backpack. Gaerian is incredibly strong. Jugen was still in a state of shock. She thought of the brawny hero Park Jian-woo. He was cold and upright, an S-rank hero famous for hunting Gaerian. Even he, on his first Gaerian hunt with 30 A-rank heroes, was the strongest in the group, the one leading the other A-rank heroes. But when they faced their first Gaerian, all the A-rank heroes died, and only Park Jian-woo barely survived. They were utterly defeated in the battle, with that boss becoming prey in its mouth. Park Jian-woo, battered and struggling, could only stand there and watch the horrific scene, gritting his teeth helplessly as his comrades were sacrificed. After that, Park Jian-woo gathered another S-rank hero and 200 A-rank heroes to wage a battle of revenge. He led the others, burning with the desire to avenge their fallen comrades. The battle for revenge was fierce. The heroes continuously launched spears and magically enhanced arrows into the air, their spears successfully wrapping around the claws on the Gaerian's wings. It was finally restrained. At that moment, Park Jian-woo and his comrades advanced with their spears for close combat. The Gaerian opened its mouth wide, gathering energy to prepare an attack. Countless heroes lost their lives to its resistance. In the end, they succeeded in killing the Gaerian and celebrated their victory together. It was just that their victory came at the cost of countless fallen comrades, as most of the participating heroes had perished. The great guild run by Park Jian-woo was unable to recover its strength for 3 years as a result. While Jugen was still lost in her memories, Dojun had already started dissecting the Gaerian's corpse to retrieve the magic stone. He glanced back at her with a very wary look. "You know you did not contribute anything right." It was another critical remark that infuriated Jugen. But she was still amazed. If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I would have never believed it. That this man, she had seen him with her own eyes, charge in alone to fight the Gaerian, a monster hundreds of times his size. At that moment, Jugen was so astonished that she could only tilt her head back, her mouth agape, as she watched the battle that felled the notorious Gaerian in a single blow. Dojun quickly retrieved the Gaerian's magic stone, a crimson gem protected by a layer similar to the boss's armor. He lowered his head and looked at it in silence. Then he quickly put the stone in his backpack. "I do not need you to guide me anymore." Dojun slung his backpack over his shoulder and left alone. "From now on, I will act on my own." Jugen asked him, "Are you not going to take the materials from the Gaerian? Besides the magic stone, there are its claws and many other valuable materials for research." Dojun's footsteps stopped. He turned and smiled at her, saying that stuff won't sell for anything. His reply left Yujin speechless. He just waved and said goodbye to her. It's more efficient to hunt for magic stones from other monsters. Just take the byproducts. Consider it a guide fee. She silently glanced at the monster's corpse. Yujin replied to him curtly, I don't need it. The mountain forest returned to its usual peaceful state. As the afternoon wore on, the golden light of the setting sun shone down on the group gathered in the forest. A backpack stuffed to the brim sat on the ground. The other heroes in Yujin's party were silent, all 6 eyes staring at that backpack. Someone spoke up. That man borrowed a large backpack and brought it back full of magic stones. Are you kidding me? That's the amount our entire party would gather in at least 2 hours, right? The backpack was the center of attention. Looking inside, it must have taken 3 whole days of hunting. They continued to whisper among themselves, who on earth is he? Meanwhile, Yujin was sitting quietly, leaning against a rock. Indu looked at Yujin and thought to herself, his speed and the sheer quantity are unbelievable. But if what Yujin said was true, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. He took down a dryad tree all by himself without any special equipment or gear. That alone was enough to say that man was the strongest hero in Korea. Indu thought of those who stood at the top, including the figure of Dojun. He might even be the strongest in the world. Hearing a noise, Indu turned to look. Dojun had one backpack slung over his shoulder and was carrying another equally heavy one in his hand. He dropped the backpack on the ground in front of the group. Then he knelt on one knee and began to open the backpack to check its contents. Whoa, he brought back another full load. Even if I told anyone about this, no one would believe me. They'd just call me crazy. Let me be clear, don't tell anyone about this. Not that anyone would believe you anyway. 2 members of the group forced a laugh. Haha, I guess you're right. Yujin slowly walked straight towards them. Indu and her subordinate watched Dojun and Yujin talking for a moment in silence. A moment later, Yujin was still chattering away with Dojun. The 2 newcomers whispered, they're definitely seeing each other right. Probably. We should have realized it when Hyun Yujin brought a strange man along. It takes a man of his caliber to not be overshadowed by her. Over here, she didn't seem too happy, but somehow those 2 could still comment that they looked good together. You can tell at a glance that they're a power couple. Indu rested her chin on her hand, thinking, wait a minute, saying they're seeing each other seems a bit odd. Looking at Dojun's indifferent attitude, she concluded that the man treated Yujin quite casually. I can't believe there's someone who treats Yujin like that. Suddenly, Dojun handed his entire heavy backpack to Yujin. Huh. Then he turned and walked away without a word. Indu was so shocked her jaw dropped, so that man just left without even a proper goodbye. They watched Dojun's back as he walked off alone into the sunset. Yujin didn't know what to say either, just muttering, yeah. Indu crossed her arms and asked, what about these backpacks? Did he just leave them all behind? She replied, I told him that if word got out that he defeated the dryad tree, he'd become famous instantly. He said being famous is a hassle and told me to deal with all this. Indu was completely floored. She looked in the direction he left, confused. What a strange man. At that moment, Yujin once again fell into a thoughtful silence. Her face suddenly flushed and her gaze softened. What a truly strange man. The scene changes back to the bustling, luxurious city. At the towering white headquarters building, someone was relentlessly punching a sandbag. Thwack! Each powerful punch came from a muscular man. Boom! His next punch caused the sandbag to explode into pieces. His eyes held an unapproachable look. Park Haeju, an S-rank hero from the Korean Hero Association and the guild master of the Whiteley Guild. He seemed angry. Damn it. Park Haeju looked pathetic. An employee bowed respectfully, holding out a towel. Please calm down, Guildmaster. As the proverb goes, the longer you endure, the farther you'll leap. He continued his fawning flattery. The better you endure hardships like this, the higher the Guildmaster's reputation will soar. Park Haeju took the towel and began wiping the sweat from his face. That's right. That'll teach those who look down on me a lesson. The other man bowed with a respectful smile. Exactly. What you accumulate now will become a solid condensed power that will unleash an explosive force. Then everyone will have to kneel before the guildmaster as beads of sweat roll down Heejin's face. The subordinate below, with a sly look in his eyes, began his speech. Besides, when it comes to tactics for dealing with the giant who knows more than the Guildmaster Parker's expression suddenly turned serious. The man beamed as he offered a bottle of water. You'll go down in history as the hero who took down the giant with the smallest team in the world. The Hero Association might even grant you exclusive rights over the giant." He took the mineral water from his subordinate's hand. That's right. Parker finally smiled, handing the towel back to his subordinate while he cheerfully said, "Because no one understands it better than I do. But compared to 3 years ago, our guild has shrunk so much." He looked back bitterly at the commemorative photo of the elite members placed next to a golden trophy. Parker said confidently, "In any case, I'm the only one who can definitively take down that submerged monster, right?" The subordinate with the wide eyes continued to flatter him. "That's right, sir. Who else could do it besides you, Guildmaster?" Their laughter echoed throughout the headquarters of the So Quiet Lawn Guild. Scene change. Dejun's information was clearly displayed on a paper with a photo attached. Kang Yong bit an F-rank hero from the Korean Hero Association and Kang Tae-on-woo's cousin. He held Do-jun's file in his hand and asked arrogantly, "So this is the guy, Seo Do-jun?" The subordinate behind him bowed and replied, "Yes, sir. A few months ago, the hero Kang Tae-on-woo tried to eliminate him by sending him into a gate. He asked again, he didn't die, and even awakened in there." The tense subordinate replied, "Yes, that's correct, sir." Yong Bit ordered, "Keep talking." The man continued to report while looking at the back of his neck. The client is Hong Hee-ju, an executive director of T Corporation. She is also the second daughter of W Corporation. Without turning his head, he remained focused on the task. Quite the silver spoon lady. Why would she get involved with trash like this? "I heard Seo Do-jun is the illegitimate son of the T Corporation's chairman. He was brought into the main house when he was 7, but he was kicked out 6 years ago when Hong Hee-ju gave birth to a son." Kang Yong Bit smirked deviously. They're blood relatives after all. Looks like these Chaebol families are completely messed up. He put his hands in his pockets and stood up. So how much did Tae-on-woo get paid? 3 billion. Yong Bit was a little surprised. Is that all? He walked over to the neatly arranged indoor golf clubs and putting green. Yong Bit picked out a club. "I heard that Tae-on-woo ended up a cripple. Is that right?" The subordinate stood at attention behind him and answered, "Yes, sir. I heard he wasn't just beaten, but his entire body was severely burned. He was blinded in both eyes and is barely clinging to life." Yong Bit gripped the club, bending over to take his stance. He tapped the ball lightly, and it rolled from its spot. What a ruthless bastard! Then he gently hit a straight shot, sinking the ball into the hole. If it were me, I would have chopped his body into pieces and crushed his head. Yong Bit licked the corner of his lips with a wicked expression as another ball was placed on the green. He hit the ball. There's a rumor that Hyunju Den helped Seo Do-jun. The ball rolled across the artificial turf towards the hole, but this time it missed. Kang Yong Bit got right in his subordinate's face and yelled, "Why would Hyunju Den do that? Why would she help that guy? What is her relationship with him?" The nervous subordinate looked at his boss. "Well, sir, it seems Hyunju Den gave a statement to the police, and the case was closed quietly." He grabbed the man by the collar and screamed in his face, "Find out what their relationship is now. If there's no relationship, there must have been some kind of deal. Find out what it was." The subordinate, pale with fear, immediately ran off. Yes, I'll look into it right away, sir." Yong Bit's eyes were fixed forward, ruthless, with a hint of bloodlust showing. In his anger, his hand had unconsciously bent the golf club. He threw the broken club to the ground. Yong Bit pursed his lips. "Hong Hee-ju's people will be coming to me soon to ask me to do the job that Tae-on-woo couldn't." He was completely confident. "Yeah, that's fine." His wicked, cruel expression returned. Yong Bit licked his lips. As the wife of a Chaebol, she must have plenty of money to spare, right? Scene changed to the outside of a building. Do-jun was walking alone under the streetlights. He was thinking to himself, "Just as I thought, hunting in cracks is way more effective than in gates." Do-jun walked slowly down the street. From now on, will I have to rely on Hyunju Den's help to get in and out? He recalled Ju Den's suggestion back inside the crack. If you sell the giant's magic stones, your abilities will be proven, but the press will be all over you day and night, so you should just hold on to them for now. The girl had said to him with her eyes closed, "If your goal is to become famous, I won't stop you. So what's your plan?" As soon as she finished speaking, Do-jun tossed her the entire backpack full of magic stones he had hunted without a moment's hesitation. He smiled. "I'll just have to find another way to get to the crack zone. First, I'll get some good rest at the new house Hwang Chang-seop prepared for me." He walked alone down the empty hallway. Do-jun pushed the door open and walked in. His eyes suddenly widened in surprise. Neatly arranged shoes were lined up by the front door. As Do-gyun stood stunned at the door, a familiar voice called out Oppa. In the living room were his grandmother, the little one, and a group of uninvited men in black suits. The only person sitting across from his grandmother and Yulian was a blond man who also turned to look at him. The frightened child ran straight into Do-gyun's arms. Oppa, Oppa, he demanded, "Who are you people?" "Seo Do-gyun, I'm Prosecutor Park Cheon-dong from the Seoul District Prosecutor's Office. You know Hwang Jang-seob, don't you?" The man's gaze was ice cold as he stared at Do-gyun. Tensely, Do-gyun shielded the child and looked back at him. Prosecutor Park sat on the chair and read the warrant. "We are placing you under emergency arrest for participating in the illegal loan sharking activities of HCS Capital's director, Hwang Jang-seob." Inside a massive high-rise building, Do-gyun sat alone on a chair in the quiet room. He glanced slightly to the side. The sound of footsteps was accompanied by a voice. Yes, Chief Lee, don't worry. Both Hwang Jang-seob and Seo Do-gyun are being very cooperative." Park Cheon-dong smiled while on the phone, then opened the door and entered the room. "Haha, thank you for your concern about my child's studies abroad. My sister." While he was still on the phone, Do-gyun was seated behind a glass partition in the interrogation room. "Please pass on my sincere thanks to Director Hong." Park Cheon-dong's gaze fell on the thin figure sitting silently on the chair as his voice continued. "The reason I became a prosecutor was to—" He leaned down slightly and laughed loudly. "Eliminate the trash from society." Haha. A stack of documents was slammed onto the table. Park Cheon-dong picked up 2 sheets of paper to examine them and then spoke. "So what the hell have you been doing all this time? With just the charges here, you could rot in prison for 10 years. He held it in front of the silent and expressionless Do-gyun. "We've already got enough evidence of your crimes from Hwang Jang-seob." As he said this, his eyes and face darkened, becoming incredibly intimidating. Seeing this, Park Cheon-dong roared in anger. "Look at this bastard. You think I'm just pinning the blame on you." Do-gyun's voice made him stop short. "Hong Hui-ju it was. That bitch, wasn't it?" Park Cheon-dong asked repeatedly in confusion. "Who Hong Hui-ju? Who is that?" Do-gyun fell silent again, thinking to himself, "It seems Hwang Jang-seob's side has been completely crushed. I came along quietly because I didn't want to make a scene. But if this continues—" He continued to walk while cursing at him non-stop. "You little punk, I don't know where you heard that." Park Cheon-dong approached. Do-gyun leaned down and spoke in a menacing tone. "But do you think a prosecutor of the Republic of Korea is some small fry? Your life is over, you fool." But his eyes suddenly flashed with a deadly golden color. This scared the living daylights out of him. Park Cheon-dong stumbled back a few steps, cold sweat beading on his face, stammering, that name." He clenched his teeth, unable to say the name. Park Cheon-dong swung his arm towards Do-gyun, who was still glaring at him, and shouted, "You son of a bitch!" Suddenly, the sound of a door opening made them both look over. A man holding documents entered and said, "Prosecutor Park, could you please step outside for a moment?" A shout echoed in the quiet hallway. "What?" Park Cheon-dong looked doubtfully at the report in his hand. "Is it broken?" Another voice replied, "No, sir. I double-checked, but there's nothing wrong with the machine." His hand holding the paper gradually tightened. The awakening detector falsely reported him as a civilian. "That can't be that guy. Is Seo Do-gyun." The assistant spoke up hesitantly. "I'm not sure either. Perhaps the information about his awakening was wrong." Park Cheon-dong thought anxiously, "But this is information investigated by the Tae Group. It can't be wrong. He even knows Hong Hui-ju's name. Who the hell is that guy?" Meanwhile, Do-gyun was still tied to a chair in the quiet room, letting out a quiet sigh. Phew! Do-gyun's eyes turned sharp and cold with anger as he thought, "Now I understand why they call Korean prosecutors the hunting dogs of the prosecution. Should I just destroy everything and get it over with?" While he was lost in thought, the door to the room opened. "I have to get Grandma and Yun-chan somewhere safe." Yuan walked into the room with a surprised look and tilted his head, asking, "What are you doing here?" Do-gyun slumped into the chair, letting out a sigh. "I don't even know what I'm doing here myself." She put her hands on her hips and warned him gently, "Please don't do anything reckless. I know you're confused right now, but if you use your powers, the consequences could be severe." Do-gyun looked up at Hyunju Yoon and asked, "Are you planning to help me?" She crossed her arms, her answer both an admission and a denial. "It's not exactly helping." Hyunju Yoon opened her eyes and explained seriously, "It's just that I know you've done nothing wrong. If I didn't know, that would be one thing. But once you know an innocent person is being framed, you have to correct that mistake." A cryptic smile spread across Do-jun's face. "Is that so?" She leaned close to his ear and whispered, "The Awakened Association is launching an investigation. They're tracking all unofficial awakening licenses and the new rift in Mappo." Do-jun's next question made her freeze. "What about my family?" Hyunju Yoon shrugged, feigning annoyance. "Do you think I'm your secretary or something? Why should I worry about your family?" But she was met with his sharp, serious gaze. It made her falter, and she looked away. Hyunju Yoon stuffed her hands in her pockets and turned to leave. "They're safe, so don't worry." Satisfied with her answer, Do-jun smiled faintly. "Thank you. I'll repay this debt." Her face flushed slightly as she glanced back, stammering, "Anyway, just hang in there a little longer. I'll sort this out as fast as I can." Outside the massive prosecutor's office, Hyunju Yoon's chosen method wasn't to directly prove Do-jun's innocence. A dozen cars sped down the highway at incredible speeds. Instead, she exposed Prosecutor Park Cheol-rang's bribery and illegal demands. This led to his dismissal, and a fair investigation revealed Do-jun had no connection to the case whatsoever. Now Do-jun and Hyunju Yoon sat in silence in the car. He couldn't avoid punishment for possessing an illegal awakening license, but thanks to her vigorous defense, even that ended with a suspended sentence. Suddenly, an emergency alert flashed on the car's tablet. A new type of monster had appeared in the United Kingdom and was attacking civilians. This mantis-like creature was 1.5 meters tall, had 4 eyes, and possessed an incredible jumping ability. Do-jun kept his gaze fixed out the window, but spoke softly, causing Hyunju Yoon's eyes to widen in shock. "It's a Macassian." She immediately whirled around to face him, incredulous. "Huh, how do you know that?" "It's a new monster, a name only the association should know." But Do-jun remained perfectly calm and silent. Monster names weren't chosen at random. He recalled the red magic stone in a laboratory filled with machines. Magic stones held condensed energy and unique information. By analyzing them, one could learn a monster's name and its related data. And Do-jun thought of 2 opposite worlds, one intact and the other destroyed. In the current world, this was accomplished through the power of science. But in the world that was destroyed, it was done by the power of magic. Next to the red magic stone was a terrifying pitch-black monster. In other words, as long as the same species of monster appeared in both worlds, Do-jun already knew most of their names. Do-jun sat in the car, arms crossed, as he gazed out the window, and quietly explained Macassians can be easily defeated with an extract from red flower ants. Hyunju Yoon repeated in surprise, "Red flower ants." He shifted his gaze to her and continued, "It's harmless to humans, but to a Macassian, it's a potent paralyzing neurotoxin. If we spray it, they'll be completely immobilized." Hearing this, Hyunju Yoon fell into a thoughtful, calculating silence. She frowned, her expression deadly serious as she asked, "Hey Do-jun, who are you really?" faced with Hyunju Yoon's question. Do-jun remained completely silent, not uttering a single word. The atmosphere between them was so still that the hum of the engine was deafeningly loud. He turned to look out the window again, his expression impassive, which infuriated Hyunju Yoon. "Are you even listening to me?" Then Do-jun opened his mouth. "What if?" He turned to her, his eyes sharp and cold, his voice laced with venom. "What if I were to kill you right now?" The incessant sharp sound of nails being bitten filled the air. Hee-ra sat at her desk, biting her nails relentlessly, her face a mask of fear and tension. The sight even made Manager Lee break out in a cold sweat. He stood up straight and reported gravely, "That's the situation." The sound of nail biting stopped. Hee-ra was silent for a moment before speaking. "Hyunju-eun, why is it Hyunju-eun?" Manager Lee held a report in his hand, replying helplessly, "I don't know. We don't know their relationship or how she even knows Do-jun." Hee-ra's expression darkened, and she angrily bit her nail clean off. Her voice was a low growl. "That Hyunju Yoon, what the hell is going on?" Then she slammed her hand on the desk and shot to her feet, shouting, "And what's this about Do-jun not being a hero? I heard he awakened." Facing Hee-ra's question, Manager Lee could only rub his head in confusion. "I'm not sure either. He definitely awakened." The terrifying killing intent rolling off her made his voice tremble. "But it's possible some skill fooled the appraisal machine. It's just a theory." Hee-ra's face twisted into a snarl, her eyes flashing with pure rage. She pointed at her subordinate and barked an order, "Contact Kang Yu-1." 20 billion, no 30 billion, whatever it takes for him to accept the job. A cocky voice suddenly chimed in, 30 billion alone won't cut it. Zelenjez was lounging in a chair, his head tilted back arrogantly as he made his offer. Double it. The assistant, looking puzzled, asked, double isn't that a bit much? But he just gestured with his finger as if to say, of course not. Zhang Pei-di propped his polished shoes on the lavish table and said confidently, from Hong Hyun-ju's point of view, there's no better option than us. If we solve this, 60 billion is nothing to that woman. As he spoke, his eyes turned deep and calculating. Plus, there's also Hyun-ju-eun. To go up against an S rank, you need at least this much. The assistant glanced away and said, Hyun-ju-eun, yes, she's also a formidable opponent. A foot stomped heavily on the ground. It sent a jolt of fear through the assistant. Zhang Pei-di moved menacingly close to him, leaning down and speaking in a terrifying voice. Hey you think all S ranks are the same. I could take down Hyun-ju-eun in 20 minutes. Facing him, the assistant's eyes widened, and he broke into a cold sweat, stammering, yes, yes. Immediately, Zhang Pei-di flashed a friendly smile and asked, have you heard anything from the association? In a luxurious room with glasses of fine wine, the assistant bowed his head to report. With a hesitant voice, he said, the British branch says they can't increase the offer any further. The association announced to the public that they will be extremely strict in selecting the heroes to dispatch. Zhang Pei-di cursed as he turned to his manager. Are those bastards at the association getting greedier by the day? What's the schedule? He felt a bit uneasy and immediately asked again. The dispatch begins in 3 days. He looked up at the clear blue sky, listening to the assistant's report, a joint mission with the Japanese heroes. Hearing this, Zhang Pei-di let out an interested, oh, Japan, huh? Just when I was planning to meet Takeshi. He stuck his hands in his pockets, gazing out the window and muttering seriously, Makashin, a new monster with an undiscovered weakness. Zhang Pei-di looked at the city with its dense skyscrapers, smiling with satisfaction. If I'm the one to find it, my value will skyrocket, ha ha ha. At that moment, a ferocious bolt of lightning from the dark sky struck the British clock tower. On the main street, the city's residents fled in chaos as a monster pursued them from behind. Suddenly, a group of people appeared standing before the massive monster. Each one held a weapon, their faces grim as they looked upon it. It suddenly let out a loud roar and raised its claws. Then it slammed down toward them, cracking the ground wide open. They swiftly dodged and split up, attacking it from multiple directions. Meanwhile, the people below were attacking with all their might using magic. Purple magic orbs struck the monster one after another, causing it to roar in pain. Its head was sliced clean off, and the monster's eyes gradually faded as it staggered unsteadily. Finally, its massive headless body crashed to the ground. The group silently stared at the decapitated corpse of the monster. They panted heavily, looking at one another. One of them heard a strange noise and turned to look. Another bolt of lightning flashed across the night sky, revealing countless monsters looking down, leaving him speechless with fear. Ah! A sharp claw descended, giving him no time to dodge. In the following days, countless monsters launched a wide-scale coordinated attack on the city. Monsters were everywhere, leaving devastation in their wake. The heroes in Britain fought desperately to stop them, but without clear information, they suffered a crushing defeat. The monsters advanced in unison toward the capital, London. The defensive line at Cambridge has fallen, and they are now less than 60 kilometers from London. As the dust and smoke cleared, the figures of massive monsters emerged, lumbering forward with a terrifying presence. Their eyes glowed with a dazzling, deadly yellow light. Suddenly, the yellow glow in their eyes vanished. The monsters stopped in their tracks, all of them letting out agonizing screams. One by one, they began to fall to the ground, convulsing violently. The sound of a helicopter echoed as it flew back and forth above the monsters. The people on the helicopter looked down below, exclaiming in utter amazement, "Oh my God, it's real!" People cheered with joy, while Yu Xian herself was still in shock. Healer Yu Xian was right. The essence from the fire ant herb is incredibly effective. The Makashins can't keep up. This is amazing. Yon Paula looked towards her, silently denying it all. No way, how could that woman be so capable? How did she do it? Yu Xian smiled happily at her teammates and said, "All right, let's go finish the rest." They all shouted in unison, "Roger." She decisively drew her sword and charged down below. The aircraft flew across the clear blue sky before slowly descending for a landing. A crowd of reporters and journalists was already waiting in front of the airport gate. Everyone was stunned as they looked ahead with some murmuring in awe. Wow, that's incredible. They exchanged glances, unable to hold back their praise. That's Hyunju Jaeon for you. She has the most outstanding record at the UK headquarters. Another journalist smiled cheerfully and added, she found the weakness of Marcos Sanchez and became a true hero. Someone else immediately chimed in, she saved England from a catastrophe, a true hero. He continued, there are reports that the British royal family is even planning to grant Hyunju Jaeon a knighthood. But before he could finish, the reporter next to him exclaimed with wide eyes, there she is. A firm footstep landed on the ground, accompanied by the clicking of high heels. Ju Yun pulled her suitcase out of the airport gate, with Kang Yi-ung Pyo following behind her. As soon as she stepped outside, she was shocked by the camera lenses and countless questions aimed at her. Ms. Hyunju Jae, please look this way. Please tell us how you found Ma Caxon's weakness. Meanwhile, Kang Yi-ung Pyo maintained his signature smile while facing the reporter's questions. Mr. Kang Yi-ung Pyo, please share your thoughts with us. I heard you captured the most Ma Caxon on this mission. Quickly, images of the two appeared on the large news screen. The group of 200, including the hero Hyunju Jaeon, returned today. As everyone knows, the pride of Korea has saved England. Following that was information about the monster. The key to hunting Ma Caxon is an essence extracted from red flower ants. A mysterious figure moved stealthily through the bustling city crowd. He looked towards the news screen flickering on a nearby building. He listened silently to the broadcast as the screen switched to an interview with Kang Yi-ung Pyo. Do-jun's eyes suddenly sharpened as he thought to himself, Kang Yi-ung Pyo. Inside a vast and incredibly luxurious dining room, carefully and meticulously wrapped gifts were placed on the table as a familiar voice said, a gift for you. Do-jun, who was about to drink from his glass, paused for a moment and asked, a gift. Ju-yun cheerfully pointed to each gift on the table, introducing them one by one. This is for Yun-jung and grandmother, and this one is for you, Seo Do-yun. She looked at him shyly, opening the gift bag and advising, you should take it home before you open it. It's not proper to open it here. Do-jun seemed to ignore Ju-yun's advice and immediately pulled a shirt from the bag, remarking, this looks expensive. She didn't deny it, casually lifting her glass for a sip before replying, it's because you helped me. Thanks to you, I'm now called a hero. Ju-yun's voice grew more serious. This is nothing compared to the help you gave me. If you need anything, I could buy you a car. Do-jun calmly picked up the bag and replied, I'll let you know when I need something, and I've already received my share of help. Her serious gaze turned to him, her voice firm. If I were to ask how you knew Ma Caxon's weakness, I wonder if you would answer. Do-jun's response to Ju-yun in this situation was just as firm. I see no reason why I should answer. She closed her eyes for a moment in silence. Then Ju-yun asked again, so tell me about your future plans. Her gaze sharpened. Thinking of Geo Angel Peggy and Hong Hai-jo, she thought to herself, it probably isn't world peace. But if he's targeting Hong Hai-jo or Kang Yi-ung Pyo, it's going to be bad. I have to stop him. At that moment, Do-jun finally began to speak. He raised a hand to his chin and looked away seemingly in thought. I guess I'll buy a house first. Hearing Do-jun's unexpected decision, Ju-yun was a bit taken aback and asked, so the house you're living in now is a rental? Under a brilliant purple sky and palm trees rustling in the night wind, excited screams and endless laughter echoed ha ha ha. The lively party music mingled with the laughter of beautiful women, creating a vibrant atmosphere. Geo Angel Peggy was soaking in the pool with his arms around two beautiful women. However, his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of Ju-yun. She's completely different from before. Geo Angel Peggy's bloodshot eyes opened as he thought about the night they faced the monster in England. And knowing the weakness of Ma Caxon, it seems she's still hiding how she got that information. Geo Angel Peggy's voice rang out. All right, Ma Caxon is one thing, but what about Seo Do-jun? While you were just relaxing on a luxury plane. He turned to Ju-yun, his voice full of confusion. I thought he bashed in a prosecutor's skull. That guy, Che-on-hu, was also present when Seo Do-jun did it. She helplessly lifted her sleep mask to explain, first of all, Kang Che-on-hu was the one who started it. The attempted murder inside the gate already failed. Even on the day they met face to face, that guy, Kang Che-on-hu, was the one who attacked first. Seeing this Geo angel, Peggy smirked devilishly. Ha ha, it's true that Che-on-hu was blinded by a bit of pocket change. Then he leaned in close to Ju-yun, his voice low and menacing. But that's my cousin, meaning I have a reason to get revenge on Seo Do-jun. But Geo Angel Peggy was met only with silence and a sideways glance from her. Then she turned her head away, calmly closed her eyes, and said, "Do whatever you want. I have no intention of interfering." Ju-yun's unusual attitude made him pensive. What's this? I guess the relationship between those two isn't as good as I thought. Then she pulled her sleep mask back down and tossed a lazy comment at him. There's no reason for me to interfere anyway. The sound of wine being poured into a luxurious glass was heard. No reason to interfere? That's clearly what she said. PD Seo Yoon-gyeol then raised his wineglass for a small sip, his expression and thoughts still very serious. There is definitely something up with that guy, Seo Do-jun. A certain city was still a pile of ruins and desolation. The United Kingdom London Southwark Bridge. This was the location devastated by the recent monster wave. Members of the association were taking turns guarding this place very strictly. The British Hero Association wanted to retrieve as many magic stones as possible before the second wave arrived. A considerable number of heroes had already been sent into the rift. One of them cried out with regret. What a shame if we had gotten the essence of a red fire. And even D-ranks like us could have taken down a C-class marker. The person standing next to him, equally dejected, agreed. That's right. If the wave had been stopped from the beginning, this would have been the best source for magic stones. Black smoke suddenly streamed from the red cracks in the sky. You can't place a portal where a wave has already passed. He turned to his comrade. I heard monsters other than C-class markers will appear in the second wave. His comrade agreed. Right, the scary part is not knowing what will show up. I heard a few countries have already been destroyed by this. He suddenly heard a croaking sound from behind and turned to look. Huh. His comrade noticed the unusual reaction and quickly asked, "What's wrong? Is something there?" He shook his head slightly, looked towards the red gate they were guarding, and said, "No, I just felt like someone came out." The person next to him replied, "You mean the raid team from earlier already came out? It's only been 5 hours." They both dismissed the strange feeling from the gate, reassuring and urging each other on. All right, stay alert and look up civilians aiming for the magic stones will definitely show up sooner or later. Suddenly, the red gate let out a roar, emitting a strange surge of power along with unusual bolts of lightning. This left both soldiers completely stunned. From within the red gate, a mysterious man emerged clad in powerful black armor that covered his entire body. His eyes radiated a killing intent so strong it would make anyone who looked at him tremble in fear. Seeing this, the association guards cried out in alarm, He's not a hero, not a commander, and not a hunter. Someone contact headquarters quickly." A hand rose up and created a ring that glowed with a brilliant blue light. The rings of light flew over and lifted the two association guards into the air. They were easily lifted and left dangling in midair, causing them to shout in shock, "What?" One of them cursed and threw 3 daggers at the mysterious man. Damn it! But they were easily deflected by his glowing blue rings. His face was covered in large scars. A horrifying, disdainful voice echoed, "Too weak." His hand suddenly clenched into a fist, causing the association guards to scream in agony. Ah! Both of them fell helplessly while he stood tall and assessed the situation. A failure. Even after activating the temporary time-space rift, I need to increase my mana. One of them struggled to look up, forcing out each word, "Who are you?" But the man only turned slightly and quietly moved his lips. Before that, a mere flick of his hand was enough to tear the man to shreds. He calmly looked down at his handiwork, his voice laced with contempt. I need to get rid of these bugs first. The scene shifts to a complex surrounded by lush green mountains, nestled in the heart of Paju Valley, South Korea. Do-jun walked calmly across the endless green lawn. As he was walking, he suddenly sensed a strange sound. A whistling sound echoed as a strange gust of wind blew powerfully across the grass. From beneath the ground emerged worm-like monsters with sharp teeth resembling chainsaws. They shot up and then burrowed back down, appearing in large numbers all around Do-jun. He bent down slightly to look into the hole they had created. Then he knelt, placing a hand on the ground to sense them, and made an assessment 26 of them within a 100-meter radius. Do-jun then gave a sinister smile as a blazing fireball formed in his hand. Let's see how many of you survive this. Do-jun aimed at the hole a monster had made and launched the fireball into it. A moment of silence followed as he waited to see what would happen. One by one, explosions erupted from the other holes, shaking the ground. The monsters' corpses were blown into pieces that flew into the sky. Dujun looked up at the remains of the monsters as they rained down. Then he let out a faint, satisfied smile. Inside a luxurious high-rise building, a man picked up his phone and said, "Understood. What kind of person is he? A man?" The man with glasses replied, "He's truly a difficult young man to deal with." He looked at the report in his hand and said, "We've received confirmation from the man himself that he is a hero. This is Min Hong-gi, the director of the Korean Hero Association." Tae Hwang took a glass of water and asked seriously, "Didn't they say he couldn't be measured with a hero meter?" Hong looked at the report, then looked up and explained, "We haven't received any explanation for that." Then he just hummed quietly. A man with his hands placed neatly on the table growled in frustration. What an arrogant brat! When the Hero Association asks you something, you should answer properly. This was Bak Shung Tran, vice president of the Korean Hero Association. Tae Hwang raised a finger, which seemed to calm him down a bit, and reminded him, "There's one more thing." Tae Hwang then turned to Hong and asked, "Couldn't you find out anything else?" He looked through the documents in his hands and replied. Although it wasn't much, Hong spoke up. Meanwhile, Dujun had to face many worm-like monsters. This was the start of hero Kang Tae-on's malicious plan. He smiled, but his killing intent was terrifying. His hands continued to form a blazing ball of energy. Seo Dujun, who awakened after nearly dying during a hunt in a gate, had taken his revenge on Kang Tae-on and even handled the new rift in Mapo all by himself. Then Dojun punched a large hole through its body. He charged forward without any hesitation. His actions might have been excessive, but they all confirmed one thing. Hong-gi lowered the document and stated with absolute certainty Seo Jun's overwhelming power. Tae Hwang crossed his arms, closed his eyes, and nodded, repeating the sentiment. A wild horse that's hard to tame, but a fine steed nonetheless. Is that what you mean? Hong hesitated for a moment, then continued, and he's requesting an official hero certificate, saying he has a sponsor and wants to bypass the formalities. Tae Hwang asked is his sponsor from the association. Hong narrowed his eyes grimly and said slowly, "An S-rank hero." He mentioned Hyunju Yeon. At this, Tae Hwang and Shung Tran, sitting on the other side, were startled, their eyes wide with shock. Meanwhile, Dojun gave a cold smile, his eyes shining through the rising smoke. Then he took out a hero card with his photo on it. Dojun sat down to rest and took a moment to look at the card. The 8th S-rank hero of Korea, huh? Monster corpses in pieces of all sizes were scattered across the green ground. Now I can hunt freely inside the rift. This is pretty great. Tae Hwang suddenly let out a gleeful laugh. KKK. He picked up his glass of water, praising him endlessly. He went straight to the rift right after getting certified. Yes, what an extraordinary young man. Hong-gi at his side nodded in agreement, adding, yes, his ability to take action is also out of the ordinary. Hearing this, Shung Tran on the other side slammed the table in shock. What? He went into a level 2 rift alone without any guild members or partners. Is the guy crazy? Tae Hwang and Hong both glanced over at him at the same time because of his over-the-top reaction. Shung Tran seemed to realize his behavior was rude and quickly sat back down. Then he said eagerly, "Chairman, if that Seo Do-jun fellow returns alive, let's publicize his identity and promote him massively. He is Korea's 8th hero after all." Hong crossed his arms and replied seriously, "But he might not want that. We should ask him first, shouldn't we?" But Shung Tran retorted loudly, "Director Min, what are you talking about? In these turbulent times, if word gets out that another S-rank hero has appeared, wouldn't the people feel reassured?" He then turned to Tae Hwang for support. "Isn't that right, Chairman?" He remained silent for a moment, then placed his hands on the table and stood up. "I understand both of your opinions." His eyes were sharp and determined. "I will meet him in person." Meanwhile, Dojun was kicking powerfully at a long monster. But from behind, more of them appeared targeting him. A quick glance was enough for Dojun to see one trying to attack him from behind. He thrust out a hand which was wrapped in blazing red energy. Dojun then shot forward in a flash. He sliced through the monsters' bodies with a raging fire. After finishing his attack, Dojun knelt to regain his balance. Behind Dojun, the towering bodies of the monsters fell one by one. With his hands still glowing with embers, he stood proudly atop the pile of their corpses. Dojun let out a long sigh and flicked his hands, extinguishing the last of the embers. He looked up at the sky and thought, that really used up a lot of my mana. The sky was vast and clear, but Dojun was still troubled by one thought: I need to prepare new weapons. Gasan Hero Complex. Next to the complex, there was a nearby shop with a small sword logo. Inside the shop, a man was grumpily playing a game. The clicking sounds echoed incessantly. Suddenly, a brass bell at the door chimed loudly. A man carrying a backpack walked in. The gamer spoke in a hoarse voice, "Please state the name on the reservation." Dojun slammed his backpack on the table, saying in a cold, low voice, "I want a weapon made with these." His fingers kept tapping. He didn't even bother to look up and said, "We only serve customers with reservations. Go find another shop." Dojun's sharp, cold eyes glanced over him. He asked doubtfully, "Didn't you say you were fully booked? You're the one who answered the phone right." After hearing that, he frowned in annoyance, looking at Dojun and saying with irritation, "A customer. We're really fully booked. We don't have time, so please go somewhere else. All the blacksmiths in this area are talented." A moment later, Dojun lost his patience and grabbed him by the collar before he could even react. The man stared at him and cursed internally, "You psycho, what do you think you're doing?" Then Dojun asked suspiciously, "Are you the owner?" Hearing that, the man replied startled, "I'm the owner's son." Before he could finish, Dojun pulled his shirt closer and ordered coldly, "Call your father out here now. I came all this way because I heard this place is good." Seeing him still staring intently behind him, the man pouted in annoyance and hastily went to find his father. Inside the ironworks, his voice yelled out, "Dad, a customer wants to see you." Slow footsteps echoed down the hallway. A sturdy old man stepped out from inside. He removed the shield from his head and asked curiously, "Who referred you to this place?" He was Choi Chokwan, the heroic weaponsmith. Dojun's face was extremely calm as he uttered a name in a low voice, Hyun Jun. Upon hearing this name, the expressions on both of their faces changed at the same time. Choi Chokwan stood there stunned. After a moment he recovered and asked suspiciously, "Did Jun really tell you to come here?" At the same time, Dojun was opening his backpack. He held out two sharp, sinister-looking fangs in front of them. His expression was one of disbelief, and he fell silent in contemplation. Choi Chokwan carefully took the two fangs in his hands and mumbled. His son looked at his father in confusion and asked, "Dad, what are those?" Looking at the sharp, rough fang in his hand, he explained in a low voice, "The fang of a black poison serpent. It's been a long time since I've seen one." Then Dojun suddenly spoke up, "Make me a moderately thin sword as long as possible." Choi Chokwan looked at him and repeated dubiously, "Long." Then he explained in frustration, "You don't know anything. With a non-metallic material like this, if you stretch the length too much, the durability will decrease. I will make 2 medium-sized blades." Hearing that, Dojun scoffed contemptuously, "So you're admitting you lack the ability to do it." This remark made them both freeze, as if it had hit a sore spot. He voiced his idea in a low tone, "Forge the 2 blades together because I need a long one. Also, increase its mana absorption capability as much as possible." Unbeknownst to them, the son's fingers clenched tightly, as if restraining his anger. He yelled furiously, "How can you say that? We lack ability. My father only makes weapons with at least a level 3 mana absorption rate." Hearing that, Dojun smirked to himself, lowering his head in feigned exasperation. Then he slowly picked up the sword from the table. After observing the sword for a moment, he calmly replied, "This must be around level 5. Suddenly, Dojun's hand tightened around the sword, and he let out an excited sound. In his hand, the sword suddenly became filled with power and shone brightly, to the utter amazement of the two of them. Suddenly, he squeezed it even tighter. The sharp blade slowly began to crack, shattering into pieces in his hand. Multiple fragments fell to the floor with a clanging sound. The two of them stared at the pieces. Dojun held out his fist and uttered a cold threat. "If you're planning to create garbage like this, then you'd better watch out." After he said that, a silence fell. Choi Chokwan glared at Dojun with killing intent, rendered speechless. In a desolate forest filled with lush trees, the sound of a slow-moving stream drifted by. At this moment, a ferocious, ugly monster with many sharp teeth appeared. Its eyes looked as if they had been slumbering for a long time. Suddenly, it sensed something, and its blood-red pupils snapped open. It stared into a fixed point in the air as the wind rustled by. It stood stunned for a moment. After looking warily in one direction for a moment, it quickly let out a loud roar. Its eyes were filled with wariness and killing intent. Dujun casually stepped into the water, hands in his pockets, and said with disgust, still as noisy as ever. He approached the monster quickly, using the power from his hand to create a flame. As if provoked, it hastily tried to stomp on Dojun with its huge foot, but he quickly dodged. It roared in anger, looking at him with pure hatred. By now, he had already leaped high into the air, swiftly using his old move to take it down. He slashed the monster's back, and the smell of rotting flesh filled the air. It shrieked in terror, its eyes looking as if they were about to burst. It angrily grabbed a nearby log, slowly pulling it up. Then it quickly hurled it straight at Dojun, who calmly sliced the log in two. He swiftly dashed towards the monster, causing it to tremble with fear. He swept past it, and behind him the whoosh of flames engulfed the creature. Suddenly, being set on fire only seemed to increase the monster's power. It grew larger and larger, looking down disdainfully at Dojun. He moved behind it, striking the weak point on its upper back. He quickly pressed down hard, transferring the power of the flames to the monster. From its back, the flames erupted even more fiercely, causing it to tremble uncontrollably. It let out a continuous agonizing scream. Its body slowly turned to black char. Without stopping there, Dujun quickly slashed at it. From its head, down its body, and finally to its leg, he landed carefully on the ground. The giant monster's body swayed before it crashed to the ground with a loud thud. Dujun looked at his hand and muttered tiredly, just as I thought maintaining a monosword for a long time is still difficult. He then took a water bottle out of the backpack he had brought. While taking out the bottle and collecting the fluid from the Cyclops' back, he mumbled, "But this is quite a lot." Dujun held up the bottle looking at the transparent fluid and smiled. I was able to take down a Cyclops. Night fell and the sky was full of stars. At the sword shop from earlier, Dujun placed the bottle containing the dark fluid on the table, handing it to Ance, the blacksmith's son. The young man looked at the bottle suspiciously and asked, "What's this?" Dujun explained in a low voice, "Tell your father that with this, he'll be able to easily join the two fangs together." Hearing this, he asked again, "What is it?" Dujun ignored his question and coldly turned to leave. Seeing this, the young man replied irritably, "Hey, you could at least say something before leaving." Dujun walked down the road, thinking deeply. I've prepared all the basic materials. But to increase the mana absorption rate, I need that. To be certain, it has to be that one-of-a-kind place. The next morning, at an expensive mansion, there was a bustling, noisy swimming pool. On a table, a phone was ringing non-stop. The caller ID showed the name Seo Jun. The person swimming picked up the phone. She wore sunglasses and looked into the distance, muttering to herself. What is it? That person was Yu Yun. She pushed her sunglasses up onto her head and asked doubtfully, Brazil. At the pool, the sound of cheerful chatter and playful splashing filled the air. On two lounge chairs sat two young women, relaxing together, Yu Yun and In Yu. Yu Yun looked at the scene before her and asked coolly, the association decided to send heroes to Brazil. In Yu glanced at her while sipping her orange juice and said, yeah, it seems the Brazilian government and the association have teamed up. They want to close the large-scale fissure. The monsters in Brazil are fierce, but yield a lot of mana stones, and the association's pay is good, so our guild decided to go. You should come along and bring him too. When In Yu finished speaking, Yu Yun looked quite flustered, hesitating as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Then the two of them continued to discuss Jun. He's that famous 8th S ranker that's been in the news, right? I'm not sure. Not sure. There are rumors you two have a special relationship, you know. What are you talking about? Hearing this, In Yu gleefully hugged Yu Yun and said suggestively, oh, how cute. I saw you even shared a cherry coke, didn't you? Yu Yun froze blushing as she stammered, that was. Then she couldn't take it anymore and shouted, fine, if you want to go, let's go. In Yu excitedly threw her hands in the air and exclaimed, thank you. Yu Yun added, but I'm really not sure if he'll agree to come with us. Moving to the scene at the sword shop, Trevor Khan asked in confusion, how in the world did you do this? Fusing two non-metallic materials as if you just melted them and stuck them together. How did you know Jich Lapblood could be used like this? Du Jun just looked at him and smirked, not offering any details. After a moment, he spoke. All right, I'll try to make it as long as you requested, probably up to 180 centimeters. Du Jun approached him to express his wishes. The shape will be like a two-handed sword, so adjust the handle so I can wield it with one hand. About 5 kilograms should be fine. Suddenly, Trevor Kent's expression secretly changed. He frowned and speculated, so polite all of a sudden. I thought he was some kind of thug, but it turns out he has some manners. Or is this weapon just that precious to him? Then he picked up the two fangs to examine them, saying 5 kilograms is a bit heavy to swing with one hand, and not just for a single swing. Hearing his explanation, Do-jun replied in a low voice, "That's fine, just make it like that. How long will it take?" Trevor Kent glanced at him and answered, "At least a month." He frowned, calculating in his head, "Level 7, will that be enough to withstand my full power?" A moment later, he quietly mumbled a sentence, "Just as I thought, I'll need that too." Then he shouldered his backpack and walked out the door, saying in a deep voice, "For now, just forge the basic shape for me. As for the process of increasing the mana absorption rate, you can do that after I bring you the material." This statement surprised Trevor Kent. He thought with doubt, is he really going to find it? Do-jun leisurely walked out onto the street. A few days later, the bright sun shone down on the river, small waves rippling on the water's surface. At a car park, a sign had the letter T on it. A luxurious, shiny, expensive car stopped at the parking spot. Do-jun observed the car. He lightly touched the door and said to the other person, "Thanks, I'll put it to good use." Yuan walked over and replied casually, "It's nothing. I'm not that petty. That car is worth 100 million won." Do-jun looked at her with a tender gaze. He smiled and said softly, "I'm grateful for it." Hearing his gentle voice, she blushed in confusion, staring intently at his face. A moment later, as he was examining the car, he heard her ask doubtfully, "Is something wrong with the Hero Association?" Do-jun glanced at the car's convertible top and explained, "They planned to reveal my identity, so I told them they'd have to pay the price." Hearing that Yuan asked pay the price, Chairman Na Tai Huang values fairness in all dealings. Do-jun opened the car door to get in and said to her, "It seems the arrangements are all settled." She hesitated, then blurted out, "Can't you be a little more proper, Mr. Seo? Do-jun, I would appreciate it if you would consider that I'm the one vouching for your identity." Do-jun didn't bother to answer Yuan. He simply closed the door in response. She watched his action, feeling helpless and saying no more. Then she walked to the other side of the car and got in. While fastening her seatbelt, she said, "Right now the association is in chaos because Brazil has fallen. When things calm down, we can talk to the chairman again." Do-jun repeated a word he heard, Brazil. Yuan's hand brushed against his sleeve as she replied, "Yes, Brazil. They said they're about to lock down a section of the fortress." Hearing this, Do-jun immediately turned to her with a questioning look, saying, "Are you going to, getting in here like this?" Yuan blushed slightly, her lips trembling. She opened her mouth and said, "What's wrong with that?" Do-jun stared at her and stated firmly, "I'm going with you." Unexpectedly, Yuan's heart pounded at his words. Her cheeks flushed red as she stared at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. Elsewhere, Do-jun's stepmother Hye-ju glared angrily at the person opposite her. She spat out each word at the man sitting before her. You want more?" He tilted his head back cockily and said, "This isn't the time to be stingy, Director Hong Hee-ju." She screamed back, "You already received 30 billion won up front, and now you're demanding more. When are you going to get to work? I never should have relied on someone like you." He asked sinisterly, "Is there anyone else who would take this job?" Seeing his words, Hee-ju laughed in anger and shouted, "There's no shortage of people who would kill without hesitation for money." He sneered, replying in a disdainful, low voice, "It seems your intel is quite outdated. Want me to give you some for free?" Seo Do-jun, he's an S-rank in S-rank, the 8th S-rank hero in Korea. Hearing those words, Hye-ju slammed the table and yelled furiously, "That brat is an S-rank. Are you trying to scam me?" He taunted, You don't believe me? This is information you'd normally have to buy. If you don't want to believe it, just wait until Seo Do-jun blows everything up." He walked towards the door, coolly putting his hands in his pockets. Suddenly, Hee-ju called out, "Wait!" Her hand trembled with a mix of jealousy and disbelief as she asked again, "Hold on, is Do-jun really an S-rank?" "If he's an S-rank, how can I control him anymore? If you need more money, I'll pay it. Just do something." Hearing this, he gave a sinister smile and said in a low voice, "Money is indeed important. It's best we become solid business partners from now on." Hye-ju stood by the table and spat out jealously, "Whatever it takes as long as Do-jun dies." He picked up his phone and looked at the screen, not responding. Her expression turned serious as she watched the man's actions. He continued to stare at the screen, his face still devoid of emotion. A moment later, he chuckled and said, "It seems the heavens are smiling on you. A confused director Hong Hee-ju asked, "What do you mean by that?" He held out his phone for her to see, smiling sinisterly as he said, "Some perfect opportunities to kill Seo Do-jun have just arrived." In the clear blue sky, a plane sped into the clouds. Inside the plane, Yu-an was seated in first class. She looked outside, thinking silently as multiple messages appeared on her phone. Even the renowned director Seo of the T Group is heading to Brazil. The man named Park Hae-in tightly gripped his nunchucks. Yu-an calmly observed the scenery outside the plane as the online comments grew more heated. Even Director Kang, the man who had spoken with Hee-ju, was observing the person sitting next to him. He watched with a puzzled expression as Do-jun happily ate his noodles. As more comments appeared, he leisurely enjoyed his meal. On the plane, everyone wore different expressions, but they all shared a common purpose: to get to Brazil. They were about to land in Brazil, in a desolate jungle in Brazil. In the city of Sao Paulo, bright sunlight shone down on the dense skyscrapers. Inside a room at the Brazilian Hero Association, two men were talking. The curly-haired man suddenly announced, "The Korean side just landed." The person next to him replied with a relieved expression, "That's good news. They're the fastest to arrive among the countries we requested." He looked at his superior and remarked calmly, "I heard the heroes didn't go to the temporary lodging and went straight into action. They really are fast at everything but." The man frowned, his tone serious. "I'm worried the Korean heroes will find out that information." The superior just grunted in response. He then clasped his hands and gave a formal order. "There are no diplomatic secrets here. Keep everything under tight control until this operation is over." The man replied respectfully, "Understood." After giving the order, the superior let out a long sigh to calm himself. An image of a withered corpse flashed in his mind, along with the related information. Brazil's national treasure hero, Moises, was killed by an unidentified creature. He shuddered internally as he thought of the creature's humanoid form. It wasn't even a monster, and what we saw on the black box was the blurry silhouette of a person. The superior's face was grave as he worriedly thought, "What in the world is happening near Santarém de Sá?" Sometime later, the heroes were all gathered in a room listening to a staff member's presentation. Yu-an wasn't focused on the briefing. Instead, she took out her phone to send a text. "Where are you? The briefing has started." Her screen showed the conversation with June. He replied, "A plane." She asked suspiciously, "A plane? Didn't we get off together?" He calmly texted back, "I switched planes. The location is too far." This message confused her even more. "What location? What are you talking about?" Finally, Do-jun sent back a location, Santarém. Yu-an stared at the word on the screen in shock. Santarém. He went to the most dangerous rift zone all by himself. On the stage, the staff member pointed to the screen, explaining the division of zones. After 2 days of field reconnaissance, you will each be assigned to a rift zone. The next day, the early morning sun shone down on a large hotel complex. In front of the hotel, Yu-an pulled her suitcase and got into a car to leave. Suddenly, a hand shot out, stopping the car door just as it was about to close. Yoon-kyu pulled the door wide open and leaned in to ask, "Where are you going? The schedule hasn't even started yet." She closed her eyes and replied casually, "I have somewhere I need to be." He looked at Yu-an and asked again, "Where?" She crossed her arms and answered calmly, "Santarém." Afterward, Yoon-kyu stood watching the car drive away. He glanced in the direction she went and thought to himself, "Isn't Santarém the place the Brazilian Association told us not to go?" At Santarém in the rift zone, sunlight struggled to pierce through the gloomy clouds, casting a dim light on the barren wasteland. Meanwhile, in this desolate region, a quiet line of young people began to walk in. Trailing behind, Jun Yu-an asked curiously, "Now that we're here, can you tell me what the big rush was about?" He didn't answer right away, calmly chiding her instead. "We had to wait for you. Weren't you the one who showed up late?" Hearing that, she shot back, annoyed. "Well, if you had just told me beforehand, no one would have had to wait for anything." When Do-jun didn't say anything more, Yu-an had to repeat her question. "Fine, whatever. Just tell me why we're here." He calmly uttered just 2 words, "Koduko-san." Her head was filled with questions. "Koduko-san. Is that it?" He glanced at her dubiously and retorted, "Do I need to give you a reason?" Yu-an stared at the back of his head, trying to keep her anger in check as she reminded him, "Hey, Seo Do-jun, I'm 3 years older than you." Do-jun replied with the same indifferent tone. "So?" She immediately snapped, shouting, "I mean, you could show a little respect for your elders. I've been speaking formally to you this entire time." He replied casually, "Then just speak comfortably." Behind them, Indu watched helplessly as they argued, their voices echoing in the desolate silence. Hearing their conversation, Indu found it refreshing, thinking to himself, I can't believe she's actually pulling the seniority card. At the back of the line, a long-haired young man asked his companion worriedly, can we really just charge into the rift like this? The young man in blue reassured him optimistically, with the hero Hyunju Eon here, what is there to worry about? The long-haired guy hesitated. She's reliable, it's true, but the guy leading us is just a rookie. His words carried all the way to the young man at the front. He just chuckled and repeated, a rookie, huh? Then the brown-haired young man turned back and boasted proudly, yeah, a rookie, but you should call Seo Do-jun a super rookie. The other two exclaimed in shock, he's that amazing. Meanwhile, at the front of the line, Yu Aeon and Do-jun were still bickering non-stop. She hurried to his side, asking with a mix of shock and suspicion, Seo Do-jun, wait a minute. You didn't come here to completely clear out the rift, did you? To her surprise, he gave a different answer. I'm here to gather materials. Why would I clear it out? I'm just going to harvest as much as I can. Yu Eon's eyes filled with suspicion as she thought, materials. A short while later, the group ran into monsters. A sharp, dark gray claw rose up and lunged at them. The arm slammed hard against the shield of the young man in blue. Seeing his comrade get knocked back, the brown-haired man quickly yelled, Commander, stay calm and hold the formation. He glared ahead, his expression cautious and defensive. Before them was a pack of dragon-like monsters with hard scales. He muttered apprehensively, they look even more terrifying than in the photos. The young man in blue, terrified, said cautiously, whoa, they look absolutely disgusting. But just then, Do-jun's voice suddenly came from behind them. Move. Then he drew the sword at his side. The golden sunlight shone on Do-jun as he held his sword, making him look like a god of war who had descended to the battlefield. He calmly recalled the blacksmith's words, it's pretty hard to get a Kaduko-san's heart with your bare hands. I'll give you this precious sword so you can get the material. Then he raised his sword high, taking a fighting stance. In an instant, Do-jun shot forward like an arrow, vanishing from where he stood. As fast as a flash of lightning, he slashed through the bodies of two monsters. At first, their bodies showed no reaction at all, but a moment later, countless slash marks appeared all over them. Both monsters were sliced apart from head to toe. The brown-haired man smiled in admiration, thinking just as I expected. The long-haired man and the one in blue stared wide-eyed, their jaws dropped in shock. What was that? They looked at Do-jun's figure standing amidst the monster corpses, completely in awe, and whispered, so damn strong. As night fell, Do-jun and his companions found a spot to build a fire and rest. The crackling fire lit up the area surrounded by the chatter of the group. Did you see that? Seo Do-jun took down that Kaduko-san in a single blow without even breaking a sweat. He's incredible. The brown-haired man covered his mouth, secretly revealing, this is a secret, but he's the one who took down the Cocatrician. The long-haired man's eyes widened in shock as he exclaimed, he's the one who caught that monster bird. Do-jun remained expressionless, paying no mind to their conversation, even as they praised him, saying he was clearly no ordinary hero. The only thing he cared about at that moment was the piece of meat grilling on the pan in front of him. Suddenly, Yu Aeon approached him and asked, have you finished processing the Kaduko-san's heart? Do-jun held up his hand for her to see and replied, see for yourself. She was still thinking suspiciously, wondering, what on earth is he planning to do with that heart? Unable to figure it out, Yu Aeon let it go. She looked at the meat on the fire and asked curiously, what kind of meat is that you're grilling? It doesn't look like beef. To her horror, he replied, it's Kaduko-san meat. It's edible. Want to try some? Yu Aeon covered his mouth, eyes wide, as he stared at the pan, his voice trembling. We brought food with us before we left, so why do we have to eat this? Seeing this, Do-jun picked up a piece of meat and started eating, waving him away. If you don't want any, then don't. He just stood there in disbelief, watching him eat with gusto. Beside them, Indu also turned to look horrified. Her face was a mask of horror, frozen as she witnessed the scene. On the other side, Do-eun asked, still in disbelief, are you really eating that? There are so many other things to eat. Just when he thought she was also disgusted, she took out a pair of chopsticks and picked up a piece of meat. Do-eun hesitantly examined the green meat in her hand. Indu looked at her in panic, crying out, Do-eun, are you actually going to eat that? She looked back and replied nonchalantly, well, he said it was edible. Then under Indu's watchful eyes, she calmly brought the meat to her mouth. Du-Eun took a bite and chewed thoughtfully. After swallowing, she covered her mouth and thought in surprise, it's actually good. And just like that, the two of them calmly ate the meat in front of In-du. Seeing this, she leaned closer to Ju-Jun and asked in a low voice, "Hey, Mr. Seo Ju-Jun, what's your secret?" Her expression was full of curiosity as she asked, "How did you manage to charm Du-Eun? That girl has never been in a relationship before, but she's not the type to give her heart away easily either." In-du glanced at Du-Eun, who was eating over there, her curiosity killing her. "Tell me, did you use some kind of charm, or is there some romantic story that made her eat that?" Her words made Ju-Jun drift off into old memories, into stories of love. Back when I was studying at the Imperial Academy before I turned 20, he thought about the time when he, the sword god, had fallen in love with the beautiful daughter of a Count Lady Maya Seal Grern of Count Grern. Then he recalled his second love, the beautiful white-haired girl, the youngest daughter of the Lazarunion family, who was in her 20s, Luanda Lazarunion. But perhaps the feelings he remembered most vividly were for that strong, heroic maiden of the Holy Land and the last saintess of the Holy Land in a ruined world, Valerica. Ju-Jun was lost in thought for a little too long, prompting In-du to shout, "Hello, are you listening? What's the secret?" He turned his head and looked at her silently. Then he smiled confidently and revealed like a moth constantly flying towards a flame. In-du never expected such an answer. She froze like a statue processing his words. In-du couldn't believe it, her eyes and mouth wide open. Her disgust was about to overflow. Holy crap, could you possibly be any cheesier? Afterwards, she walked over to the other side and suddenly slapped Du-Eun hard on the back. At this time in the city of Sao Paulo, the high sun was shining down on all the buildings and streets. In his room, Jong-pyo listened silently to his subordinate's report. "So that's how it is." He picked up a wine glass and mumbled in confusion, "I don't get it. The start date of the operation hasn't even been announced. Why are they in such a hurry?" He had a pensive look on his face, speculating with doubt. Moreover, they went with Seo Jo-Jun and Young In-ju, so everyone including Young In-ju of the Carnation Society went alone. Rio Enger Perry suddenly turned his head to ask his subordinate, "Are there any valuable monsters in Santadim?" "As far as I know, there aren't any." The subordinate replied respectfully, "Sir, even when we pressed the Brazilian side, their only answer was that the place is very dangerous." He complained warily, "Anything related to that guy Seo Ju-Jun is unpredictable." Suddenly, his phone rang with an incoming call. Rio Enger Perry answered the phone, asking warmly Director Hong, "Why are you calling me?" A disgusted voice came from the other end. "That bastard Seo Ju-Jun is still alive. When are you going to do something about it?" His face filled with cunning as he asked coolly, "Why are you in such a rush? Did something happen?" Zelen Gies listened with an indifferent expression as Hee-Ra vented, "My father, I wonder if he's seen the news about Ju-Jun being S-rank and if he's told him to come home." He stood up and greeted her with an interested tone. "Oh, so Chairman T is finally making a move. Are you getting nervous, Director?" Hearing this, she yelled back angrily, "I told you I don't have time for jokes. What are you planning to do?" Zelen Gies stood in front of a map and answered calmly, "I have found a proper partner, so I must ensure they aren't disappointed." He bit the cap off, took out a pen, and also ensured that Seo Ju-Jun would definitely not be able to leave Brazil. Rio Enger Perry raised his hand and marked a location on the map, not forgetting to listen to Hee-Ra's reply. "That's a good answer." Hearing that, he replied lazily, "If you understand, then hang up Director Hong, Hee-Ra." Afterwards, he turned his head and ordered contact the people at Takant. The subordinate obeyed respectfully. "Yes, Rio Enger." Rio Enger Perry looked at the location he had circled on the map and commented in a dangerous tone, "Seo Ju-Jun coming to the isolated zone himself just makes things simpler." Meanwhile, on Ju-Jun's side, the sun was up, so everyone continued on their journey. Du-Eun looked at the map and reminded him, "Are you planning to go into the forest? They say it's full of dangerous monsters." He asked back doubtfully, "What kind of monsters?" Du-Eun had a wary expression as she carefully uttered Lin Mieux. Ju-Jun glanced at their surroundings and said calmly, "Lin Mieux, so they exist here too." She looked at him and asked curiously, "Do you know anything about Lin Mieux?" He replied with certainty, "Yes, I do." Then he said no more and just continued walking. From behind, Du-Eun watched his back and muttered, "I knew it." She held something up and called out loudly, "I don't need these. Just make sure you wear this." Du-Yun looked at the object in her hand and asked, "What's that?" Yu-Eun held her hand out to him and calmly explained, "Earplugs. You know that if you're affected by the Ling Mu's cry, you'll be paralyzed." But his next words made her eyes widen in surprise. "I don't need them." Watching Du-Yun leave without hesitation, Yu-Eun anxiously called out a warning from behind. "You can't underestimate the Lin Mu. The pro-heroes have already warned about how dangerous it is." As his figure disappeared behind the green trees, she shouted in frustration. The sky had completely darkened, but the shining stars stretched across the night, making the scene sparkle. The scenery was beautiful. Du-Yun's party had been walking since morning with no signs of stopping to rest. Suddenly, the dark silhouette of a monster appeared above their heads. Its two eyes glowed like a stalking tiger's as it watched the approaching group. Everyone who spotted it was terrified, defensively watching the monster ahead. Inu covered her ears with one hand while shouting a reminder, "It's a Lin Mu. Everyone cover your ears." Only Du-Yun stood still looking up at the monster in the tree. He watched it scream and attack the group silently, waiting for a chance to counter. The Lin Mu tilted its head back and howled. Its voice echoed throughout the area. Its cry made everyone feel uncomfortable, even though they had covered their ears. Yu-Eun suddenly noticed Do-Yoon's figure up ahead, thinking in horror, why isn't he covering his ears? Just then he picked up a stone from the ground. Do-Yoon channeled power around the stone, and a flame suddenly ignited. Then he threw the stone at the Ling Mu, the burning rock flying swiftly towards its target. After the attack, everyone was surprised to find the Lin Mu's cries had stopped. Ahead they saw the monster had already fled. Seeing this, Do-Yoon gave chase without hesitation. Inu and Yu-Eun hurried after him, and Inu asked Yu-Eun in confusion, "What was that?" The Lin Mu stopped screaming. When everyone caught up, they found Do-Yoon standing still in one spot. In front of him were 4 or 5 more Lin Mu. One of the monsters was tensing its body, baring its teeth, and looking at him threateningly. Suddenly, its eyes began to glow with a red light. It turned out it had been watching Yu-Eun, intending to attack her first. Yu-Eun was shocked and horrified, staring helplessly as it targeted her. Her eyes were seen slowly changing color along with the Lin Mu's eyes. Just as she was about to be hit by the attack, a hand suddenly covered her eyes. It was Do-Yoon who had protected her just in time. He explained seriously, "It's not the cry." He calmly revealed the truth. The thing that paralyzes your mind is its eyes. Yu-Eun glanced at him in fear. Then Do-Yoon grabbed his sword and told her, "Keep your eyes closed for a moment." He slowly walked forward, facing the pack of monsters by himself. His sword was gradually enveloped in a brilliant flame as he wondered to himself, "Is this the limit?" Do-Yoon swung his sword over his head, creating an arc of fire with several fireballs orbiting it. The firelight reflected in his hair, and his eyes gradually took on a blue glow from the flames. The fire on the sword flared up intensely. Do-Yoon raised his sword, pointing it directly at the Lin Mu pack and gathering power at the tip. A fireball gradually appeared at the tip of the sword. The pack of monsters seemed to sense the threat and grew agitated, pacing on the branches. Meanwhile, Do-Yoon's fireball grew larger and larger. The young man in blue cried out in fear at his technique. "What kind of skill is that?" The brown-haired guy also remarked in terror, "That looks insanely dangerous." Do-Yoon paid no attention to his surroundings, focusing only on using his power. When the technique was complete, he unleashed it. A pillar of fire erupted from his position, shooting straight towards the lynx. A flame like a massive meteor came crashing down on the monsters. The lynxes could only stand and watch, unable to escape the lightning-fast attack. The fire slowly enveloped their bodies. Moments later, they were burning violently in the blaze. A pillar of fire tore through the forest, illuminating the sky. Inru and Dueon shielded themselves from the scorching blast of hot air. When the attack stopped, Dueon stared in shock at the scene before her. A huge trench created by the technique stretched from Do-Jun's feet all the way through the forest. The lynxes were now just lifeless bodies scattered across the ground. Strangely enough, smoke rose from their pelts, but their fur showed no signs of being burned. Everyone behind them stared in utter disbelief at the scene. Dueon stammered, "No way." Just then, one surviving lynx shakily got to its feet. Do-Jun calmly walked towards it. He stopped a few steps away, and the monster suddenly used its skill. Its eyes started glowing again. Unaffected, Do-Jun swiftly raised his sword and cut its head clean off. The lynx's head rolled across the ground. The last thing it saw was his contemptuous face as he mouthed, "You dare." Do-Jun reached for its eyes and said nonchalantly, I'll be taking these. Darkness then enveloped the lynx's mind with only his voice echoing, I need them for something. Dujun strode ahead, leading the group, his long shadow stretching across the ground. Following behind, Inru secretly glanced at him. Duyan was also sneaking glances at him. The others in the group whispered, that was insane, is he even human? Someone whispered, he might be stronger than an A-rank hunter. Another added, maybe even on par with an S-rank hunter. Someone else shook their head. S-rank hunters are the strongest heroes in the world. That's impossible. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold as a few zombies emerged from the lake. They let out incredibly piercing shrieks. A guy in the group muttered, they really can't read the room. The person next to him replied helplessly, well, the undead don't exactly have brains. The zombies rushed in to attack, and in an instant one was punched so hard its teeth flew out. Dujun had thrown the punch. The zombie's head flew off like a splinter of wood. His eyes flashed his gaze as sharp as a sword, ready to tear through the darkness. His figure vanished in a blur. He laid into the zombies, turning them to fragments with every slash and kick. Their bodies were sent flying in every direction. He stopped his foot resting on the head of the final zombie. The entire group stood frozen. Silence fell over them as if time itself had stopped. After a while, the group straightened up and continued their journey, their footsteps echoing on the rocky ground. Duyan then asked hesitantly, that swordsmanship of yours. She blinked and asked, where did you learn that? The technique that creates that crackling red point. Dujun looked at her silently, knowing she was talking about his sword god form. He frowned, what you want to learn it? Duyan's eyes instantly lit up. Can I really learn it? Dujun thought that such a skill wasn't needed in this peaceful world, so he tossed the question back to her. Even if you learn it now, when would you ever get to use it? I was secretly fuming. There's a limit to how much you can look down on someone. I'm an S-rank hero too. But Yu Yun managed to hold her tongue. Can't I at least use it once before I die, or do you just not want to teach me? He just looked over in silence. Yu Yun didn't avoid his gaze. It was as if they were in a staring contest to see who was more stubborn. In the end, she was the first to surrender. Fine, fine. I guess this is all I am to you. Inju was speechless watching the two bicker. Not wanting to see their little show anymore, she spoke up. All right, let's go through the fissure. She immediately got a response. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Dujun and Yu Yun led the way into the fissure. Inju was the last to enter. She glanced back and sighed in relief. Thanks to Dujun, there were no casualties. She calculated in her head, next time we come here, we can shorten the time even more. Then Inju also stepped into the fissure. As soon as she poked her head out of the tunnel, she heard someone screaming, I'll kill you. Inju recognized the language. It was Japanese. It turned out another group was arguing with them. You dare get in our way. She stood among the group dumbfounded. That voice is... From what she could see, Do-jun was holding Yu Yun by the waist, for some reason warily watching the other group. The other group looked aggressive, armed with swords and blades. Their leader turned out to be Yamamoto Takeshi, an F-rank hero from the Yakuza, the guildmaster of Dache. He growled, I finally get a chance to have some fun with Quien Vuong today, and you dare get in my way and cause trouble. He didn't even hesitate to threaten him. Get lost before I smash your face in. Get lost before I smash your face in. Do-jun suddenly retorted in Japanese, your party is quite an eyesore, aren't they? Even Yu Yun was startled. You can speak Japanese? He nodded slightly. A little. He was sweating internally at his slip-up. In truth, the original Do-jun was the one who learned it. The guy lost his patience, radiating killing intent. What are you thinking about, you dogs? Seeing this, his underling yelled, How dare you be so insolent to our guildmaster? Get on your knees and apologize now. Do you know who this is? This is... He replied curtly with a deadpan face, I don't need to know. Get lost. The tense atmosphere escalated continuously. Inju watched the situation from the side, worried. Dache is the 5th-ranked guild in Japan, notorious for being disorganized and thuggish due to their Yakuza origins. No matter how strong Do-jun is, it's better to avoid them. She stepped forward to try and mediate. Let's all calm down a bit. He cut her off before she could say more. This is no place for a woman to interfere. This hit Inju's pride hard. A woman. Her guild members immediately got angry. "What are you monkeys babbling about? You dare insult our guildmaster, you brain-dead bastards." In this situation, although Inju was furious, she tried to keep a cool head. "Everyone be quiet." She introduced herself in the most moderate tone she could manage. "I am Young Inju from the Hoa Kam Chuang Guild. It would be better to resolve this peacefully here." But he didn't pay her any mind. "Never heard of your guild." With a despicable look, he turned and sneered. "You need a man. Don't you worry, your turn will come." Then the guy brazenly grabbed Yu Yun's arm and pulled her forcefully. Dujun immediately slapped his hand away and pushed her behind him. A fist landed squarely on his face, accompanied by the man's dismissive word, "Scram." The guildmaster raised his fist. "I've got something to show you. I was planning on killing you anyway, so just sit tight." Despite getting punched, Dujun was calm enough to realize that this something to show was a deliberate provocation. Quick as the wind, he returned the punch he just received. "If that's what you want, you've got it." Dujun punched him so hard that he flew back several meters, landing right where his underlings were. He raised his fist and warned them, "All of you back off." He threw the first punch, so this is self-defense. They trembled as they looked at Dojun, while he didn't even spare them a glance. This is a one-on-one fight, right? It'd be easier without the small fry. The leader got up from the ground, took off his shirt, and ordered everyone fall back. This time, he was going all out. You could see every muscle fiber on his body bulge. Yu Yun looked over and silently called his name, Dojun. She watched his back and prayed, "Please just kill half of them." Seeing this, the expressions of all three of them were of utter disbelief. Even Yu Yun was so surprised she was speechless. Dojun ruthlessly stomped on the man's head. It drove his head deep into the ground. Suddenly, the man grunted and struggled to lift his head back up. He suddenly backed away, staring warily at Dojun. His forehead was dented, and he covered his nose in confusion, thinking, "No way, is he really that strong? Who is this guy? He's nothing like what I was told." Dojun held his position. He looked at his opponent with perfect calm, but his eyes were filled with a chilling, killing intent as he stared at his prey. Suddenly, the man looked into his dark eyes as if he could read them. The words "just die" terrified him to his core, and he hastily ran for his life. Abruptly, Dojun was already in front of him. A cold, ominous wind brushed past the man. He looked down on the man, coldly demanding, "Who sent you to start trouble with me?" "I already have a pretty good idea who it was, but still." As he spoke, his ice-cold fingers touched the man's hair. The man trembled hastily, begging, "Spare me." He sneered, "You want me to let you go?" Dujun replied while slapping the man's face repeatedly, "Not a chance." Then his fingers clenched into a fist. He swiftly punched the man in the face, sending him stumbling back. Fresh blood spurted from his mouth. Witnessing this, Yu Yun and Indu watched the brutal scene in shock. Dujun lightly touched his bicep, calmly watching the man lying on the ground. Indu immediately covered his mouth, stammering, "I knew this would happen, but I didn't expect it to be this one-sided." Dujun touched the man's head and then began stomping on it, repeatedly, creating a constant thudding sound. Indu grabbed Yu Yun's sleeve and said anxiously, "He's actually going to kill him if this keeps up. Stop him, Yu Yun." Hearing this, she quickly shouted, "Dojun, stop it. He's going to die." Dujun replied coldly as he continued to stomp, "I am taking responsibility." Seeing that he wasn't listening, Yu Yun went over and pulled his hand away, saying, "What do you mean, responsibility?" "And what's the big deal if I do?" Dujun blurted out. "I've seen plenty of scum like this. It's better to just kill them." The two grabbed his arm, trying to reason with him. "Dujun, it's not worth getting upset over trash like them. Please stop. I'm sure they've learned their lesson." Indu turned to the man's cronies and yelled, "Answer clearly if you don't want a piece of this too. Don't ever mess with us again." His companions hurriedly knelt and shouted respectfully, "Yes, sir." Seeing this, Dojun spoke coldly, "Is kneeling all you're going to do? All of you put your foreheads on the ground." Terrified, they started bowing their heads to the ground, saying yes. Then Dojun added another cold remark that made them freeze in terror. "The Yakuza cut off a finger when they mess up, don't they?" They quickly slammed their foreheads on the ground again, shouting, "Please spare us." Dujun stared at them with contempt and said, "Say I'm sorry for being a piece of trash and I'll let this go." He pursed his lips and tremblingly said, "I'm sorry for being a piece of trash." Indu watched them helplessly while Yu Yun surprisingly began to laugh mockingly without stopping. Even the man Dojun had beaten trembled as he forced out the words, "a piece of trash." The three of them watched the scene unfold with varying expressions. Meanwhile, it was morning in the city of Sao Paulo. A man sat in an armchair frowning as he looked over some documents. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed, staring intently at the paper. Then he observed the two people across from him, Yu-eun and In-do. He silently arranged the paper, but a thought crossed his mind. Do they want me to believe this? S-rank hero Takashi was beaten so badly he's beyond recovery, and his opponent was just one person. It's hard to believe since Takashi was the only one injured. It's not easy to pull something like that off. I was still hoping Korea and Japan would cooperate to seal the rift in the M Mountain region. According to the report, our Brazilian association has no involvement. This matter will be handed over to the Korean and Japanese hero associations. You two will receive their decision. In-do clasped his hands behind his back and calmly replied, "Understood." Hearing this, he hesitantly asked, "So you all went to the rift near the mountain. Was there anything strange?" Juan wondered strange, but In-do calmly replied, "No, nothing was strange at all." The man said, "All right then." Then he picked up the paper to examine it and said, "Oh right, Do-jun is the name that appears most in this report. Why isn't he here?" Both of them wore the same reluctant expression. They quickly said about that he said he had to take care of a few things and has already left. He asked doubtfully a few things. Meanwhile, at the medical center, the hallways were filled with the ceaseless groans of people in pain. In hospital room 3, the man's eyes were wide as he stared at the person before him, letting out a whimper. The person standing before him was Do-jun. He held a bouquet of flowers, looking down at him coldly. Seeing him trembling uncontrollably, he commanded coldly, "Stay still. I came all this way just to visit you." After speaking, he quickly took out an orange eye and held it up. He touched it to the man's forehead, terrifying him even more. Do-jun spoke indifferently. "All right, tell me about what happened." Suddenly, the man's pupils flashed. The entire room fell silent, growing even quieter. His mouth suddenly began to mumble out each word. For this incident, a bug like me caused trouble for the members of the Korean Guild. His was the only voice in the room. Do-jun watched him with an icy gaze. Then he turned and left. The man's weak voice cried out, "Let Jiaku's mother go! Let Jiaku's mother go! Let Jiaku's mother go!" Do-jun clenched his fist and walked coldly out of the room. Rumors about the clash between the Korean and Japanese heroes spread like wildfire. The man holding a teacup was Tae Hwang. He looked at the gossip papers and asked in a low voice, "News about Jun is all over the country. It's a real explosion. I see his name in the news every single day." Hong, the vice president of the Korean Hero Association, looked at him and asked curiously, "But is it true that the Japanese Hero Association dropped the investigation?" He nodded nonchalantly and continued to reply. Takashi's side officially admitted to it. "I really don't get it. He's the type who always stirs up trouble when he gets the chance." "Are you suggesting there's something Japan can't afford to touch?" Hong looked at him completely confused and stammered, "What could it possibly be?" Suddenly, Tae Hwang's lips curled into a sly smile as he said, "Who knows? I have a feeling that from now on, Do-jun will become the center of a storm that will shake the entire world of heroes." By now, it was dark. At D1, there was only one day left until the rift sealing operation in Brazil began. The elite team of Korean heroes had arrived early to acclimate to the environment. Afterwards, they met and exchanged information with heroes from various other countries. They shared joint operational plans as well as detailed strategies. Before the day of the operation, a ceremony was held to boost morale, and the main character was none other than Seo-jun. At that moment, they laughed as they approached Jun to strike up a conversation. Suddenly, In-do said in a low voice, "I heard the rumor that Do-jun completely destroyed Takashi has already spread worldwide. Everyone who approaches me only talks about that, and yet he doesn't show any pride at all. He's really on another level. Compared to someone like him, you and I just seem like ordinary people, don't we?" "I don't know." Juan's expression turned sad. Seeing her like that, she became flustered and stopped talking, thinking to herself, "She's not even in the mood to listen to me. What are you looking at with such a gloomy face?" Then she immediately turned to look at Do-jun. She was surprised to see him with a beautiful woman. She smiled as she approached him, holding a glass of wine. She was Gloria Taylor, an S-rank hero from America, and voted #1 in the World Hero Beauty Rankings. With that thought, In-do immediately gave Do-eon a light slap on the back. With a smack, she yelled, "You're such a mood killer. What are you still sitting there for? Get up!" Do-eon asked in confusion, I didn't do anything." Then Do-jun suddenly seemed to hear something and glanced across the hall. He saw Dueon awkwardly avoiding his gaze. She blushed in embarrassment and looked down. She avoided looking at his face. While Do-jun's expression remained cold, he gave the other person a faint smile. Taylor noticed his expression subtly turned away and said cheerfully in a low voice, "It was a pleasure meeting you." "Goodbye, Castro." Dueon looked at Do-jun confused and asked, "Who's Castro?" He took a quick sip of his drink and replied, "That's me." Hearing that, she exclaimed in surprise, "You have an English name too." A moment later, Do-jun explained softly, "It's a name I used even before Do-jun." She observed his somber expression and thought, could he have lived abroad as a child? The background check didn't show anything like that. Why didn't he tell me about that name? At that moment, a man was witnessing the conversation between Do-jun and Dueon. Yongbit held his wine glass, observing him from afar, and thought with disgust, "That bastard Takashi, he can't even handle a piece of trash like this." He took a sip and thought, the final strategy, "I guess I'll have to handle this myself." Suddenly his ears twitched as he faintly overheard Dueon's voice saying, "But you have to be careful, Do-jun." Yongbit secretly glanced at the two as they walked past him. Behind him, she quickly continued, "I know you're strong, but enemies don't always fight fair. Takashi has a few close associates, the most notable one is." Do-jun said in a low voice, "That's enough." Dueon looked at him worriedly and replied, "But you should at least know who they are." He scoffed contemptuously. "They're probably just like Takashi, a bunch of pathetic weaklings who like to act tough." "Don't worry, they're nothing to me." Not even a little. After saying that, Do-jun turned to look at the man behind him and gave a cold smile. Yongbit froze, holding his wine glass. Faced with his murderous glare, his own face contorted with ferocity as he angrily turned to look back at Do-jun. He continued to hold that smirk. Yongbit's fingers tightened slightly, and he cursed him under his breath. "You bastard! I'll kill you with my own hands." The scene changes. The moon shines brightly in the night sky. Indu and her teammates observed the phenomenon before them. She looked up and thought, "This is the first time I've seen something like this in the rift area near Sanaheim." Looking at the dark purple lightning, she quickly added, "Is the entrance to the rift supposed to be this dark and murky?" Meanwhile, Dueon excitedly approached the rift entrance, turned around with a smile, and exclaimed, "What's the problem, sis? We have 2 S-rank heroes here. What's there to worry about? I can't wait to seal it." Indu sighed in relief and replied, "You're right, there's nothing to worry about." Then she immediately ordered her teammates in a loud voice, "Everyone move in." They all replied in unison, "Yes, ma'am." Everyone slowly stepped into the eerie, chilling darkness of the rift area. Just then, Dueon glanced at Do-jun's worried and pensive expression. A moment later, seeing his pale and uneasy face, she asked, "What's wrong?" Do-jun looked at her and asked hesitantly, "You can't feel it." She replied doubtfully, "Feel what?" Seeing Do-jun so worried, Dueon stammered to, "Indu sis, do you feel anything strange?" She looked at her puzzled and asked, "Not at all, what are you talking about?" Do-jun didn't explain further, he just stared fearfully at the crackling purple rift and thought to himself. Then his cold voice broke the terrifying silence. "The mana concentration has increased." His voice echoed in the strange atmosphere. At that moment, on a rugged cliff, a man was holding a phone measuring the mana, which had increased by 23.61%. Then he observed them from below and muttered, "It won't be long before it reaches 30%. Damn insects, it would be so much easier if they all just died from this." A moment later, Indu's teammates couldn't take it anymore. They all cried out, trembling, "My body feels so heavy it hurts. I feel suffocated, I can't breathe." Do-jun cautiously observed his surroundings, silently speculating, "The mana here is completely different. Its concentration is even thicker than in the Batizua forest." Ju-yun watched his anxious face, thinking in shock that she'd never seen Do-jun this tense before. There must be something truly terrifying here. Inju broke the silence. "Everyone stay calm." She looked at the 4 of them. "This might be a property of this rift. Our bodies feel heavier than usual, so don't lower your guard." Inju looked at Ju-yun and Do-ju, giving orders. "Ju-yun, you protect the formation. You too, Do-ju." Ju-yun stood with her arms crossed, listening to In-ju's command understood. In-ju spoke cautiously. "We need to find the reason for this change in mana density. Our main goal is to close the rift, so everyone stay alert. Move out." The orders were clear to everyone. The group moved silently through the darkness. This is a map of the area from when Do-jun entered the Santarem Rift. The northern region of Borgia Roman, the largest city in the rift, was where the French, Korean, and Borgia teams were dispatched. A loud noise erupted, knocking several people down. The sound of incessant wing beats echoed through the air. A swarm of giant bees appeared. They flew straight toward the group and began their assault. Hoon-woo grew furious as he watched his comrades sustain heavy injuries. One of his teammates collapsed right in front of him. Hoon-woo glanced worriedly at his fallen friend. The bee monster continued its charge, aiming for Hoon-woo. He threw a powerful punch straight at his opponent. A wisp of smoke rose from his fist after the impact. Killer Bee, a flying-type monster of the hornet variety. The giant bees continued their relentless assault on the others. The tide of the battle was turning against them. An axe blade suddenly fell upon In-ju's group out of nowhere. He looked at In-ju worriedly. This is strange. Why are these orcs so strong? Figures with long, sharp fangs and menacing axes emerged. They prepared to attack. Hoon-woo and BAE charged in, launching a surprise attack from the rear. BAE unleashed an attack aiming straight for one of the monsters. Even though Bei's attack was powerful, it didn't seem to injure the creature at all. It raised its weapon high, preparing to strike. Ju-yoon swooped in to save them. She moved everyone to safety. Thanks. Don't be so reckless next time. Ju-yoon turned back to the fight with a cold expression. She now faced a monster several times her size. Ju-yoon dodged the blow and immediately launched a counterattack. She aimed a kick at the monster's head. It turned around and attacked Ju-yoon in return. She launched herself into the air, preparing for her next move. The full force of the kick slammed into the monster's massive body. Another monster saw an opening and immediately charged at Ju-yoon, swinging its axe. However, its axe struck its own ally in the head instead. The monster was confused. Ju-yoon silently appeared behind the monster and struck with lightning speed. The powerful kick sent both the creature and its weapon flying. The monster crashed to the ground. Everyone else was stunned by Do-jun's immense power, truly befitting an S-class. So strong. Another monster roared in anger. Before it could act, Do-jun landed a powerful punch. Right in the face, the monster collapsed. But Do-eun worriedly assessed the battle with this level of difficulty right at the entrance. It wouldn't be easy to close this rift, even with the two of them. Blood flowed from the monster from before. Do-eun walked towards Do-jun. What are you looking at? Do-jun looked at the monster's corpse and said, Here, do you see this black ripple-like thing? Ripples. Streaks of black energy flowed through the air, covering the monster's bodies. You had to focus to see it. What is this? Do-jun continued his analysis. This is why they suddenly got stronger. The monsters were surrounded by streams of black energy. Why is there dark mana here? Everyone listened nervously to Do-jun's analysis. The surroundings were completely silent. Then strange, eerie noises suddenly echoed from the quiet, dark forest. Deep in the dense forest, a monster made of mud was roaring fiercely. A brown-haired boy leaped up, slashing across the mud monster's body, trying to kill it. But its body instantly reformed, becoming whole again, as if nothing happened. Then the mud monster collapsed down on the boy, attacking him. Seeing this, the brown-haired boy and the shield-bearer joined forces to attack. The brown-haired young man quickly delivered several powerful slashes, the sound of his blade whistling through the air. But when they stopped, the monster regenerated its body once again. The shield-bearer stared in horrified disbelief, whispering, Impossible. The brown-haired boy was also stunned, exclaiming, They're unbelievably strong. Before they could react, the mud monster struck them both hard. The young man was pushed back, struggling to stay balanced, while the shield-bearer was sent flying to the ground. He glanced at his armor and said cautiously, An attack that can even tear through combat gear. This is too dangerous. Nearby, the shield-bearer's teammate was also struggling against a monster. Seeing the situation, he cried out in alarm, What the hell is going on? Just then, another mud monster snuck up behind the brown-haired boy, opening its mouth wide to devour him. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Do-eun rushed in and sliced its head off. Meanwhile, the monster in front of the brown-haired boy expanded its body, about to grab the two of them. Again, Do-eun arrived just in time to kill it, saving them both. Glancing back, her expression grew grim as she thought, If the swamp demons are like this, the Veokura will be even more dangerous. This rift is too strange. As if realizing something, her eyes widened in terror. To one side, a disgusting swarm of monsters was writhing everywhere. Do-eun looked at them, a horrifying thought crossing her mind. Brazil. No, this could be happening all over the world. Near the rift by Manos, misty clouds drifted over high mountains, creating a peaceful and beautiful scene. But deep within those mountains, someone was fleeing for his life. They're all dead. The young man's face was covered in sweat, his eyes filled with absolute terror as he concluded, "The Brazilian guild is completely wiped out." With a desperate look, he recalled the gruesome spider monster behind him. David from France, too, all because of a few Veokera. At the same time, over with Dojun, a distracted Do-eun turned to look at him, repeating doubtfully, "Veokera." Dojun threw a punch, killing a mud monster. Once it was done, he glanced at her and confirmed, "Yes, the Veokera are also infected with dark mana, so we have to be careful." Hearing the strange term, Do-eun asked dark mana, "Is that black aura surrounding the black orc, right?" Then she looked at the monsters in front of them, carefully observing the energy around them. "Like the stuff covering these swamp demons, now does it make them stronger?" He calmly confirmed, "Yes." Do-eun said no more as a monster attacked her. She leaped up nimbly and punched right through its body. The teammates around them stared at her with wide, admiring eyes. Do-jun ignored the others and continued explaining to her, "Think of it as concentrated mana being poured into their bodies." While fighting a monster, Do-eun asked curiously, "Mana like magic in a game?" He chuckled when he heard that. Hearing him laugh, she became embarrassed and annoyed. "What's so funny? Is there really something called mana in this world?" Do-jun calmly revealed the hidden truth. The biggest difference between heroes and ordinary people is mana. But up ahead, a monster that refused to be ignored let out a loud roar, making its presence known. The moment it screamed, Do-jun leaped up in a flash, piercing through it, and another monster. He took no joy in his victory. His mind simply drifted thinking about a world without mana. His eyes were somber as he thought to himself, "It really is peaceful here." The moment Do-jun landed, 3 monsters rushed to attack him. He thought grimly, though, not for much longer. He cast a sharp, cold glance behind him. Do-jun slammed his fist into one monster. His other hand pierced through another. He crushed the last one under his foot. Do-jun then nimbly leaped out of the monster encirclement. Behind him, the 3 monsters exploded simultaneously. His teammates looked on speechless with awe and amazement. Do-eun approached him, then asking hesitantly, "Hey, about that dark mana, that's what's making the monsters so powerful, right?" Do-jun turned to explain, "Yes, think of it like an athlete being injected with a concentrated dose of steroids." She nodded, I get it." Do-eun then asked again, "But how do you know that, Do-jun?" He replied with a strange look, "It's more strange that you don't." After the battle, the group followed Do-jun's map towards Veokera's location, a dangerous path through an area filled with swamp monsters. As Do-jun had warned, the place where Veokera would appear was extremely dangerous, so they slowed their pace. After some time, they finally arrived. Nindu was in the lead. Seeing the sight before them, she raised a hand to signal a halt. Before her were white cocoons, each enveloping a different monster. She turned back and cautiously reported, "Just as Do-jun said, these are Veokera's food cocoons." The trees were covered in webs and white cocoons. Nindu scanned the area vigilantly and warned in a serious tone, "Be careful, Veokera might be nearby." Suddenly, Do-jun spoke up, drawing everyone's attention. He raised a hand, gathering power in his palm as he pointed, "This is the real danger. It's a good thing we found it early." Seeing the fireball in his hand, Nindu stammered in shock, You're a mage, Do-jun." She then looked at the white cocoons in disbelief, asking, "This is the danger, these cocoons." Without a word, he raised his hand and launched a fireball at the cocoons. The cocoons immediately exploded in a burst of flames. Do-jun watched as the fire consumed the cocoons before explaining, "A Veokera that has absorbed dark mana uses them as puppets."